I wanted to start by thanking everyone for the support that they've given and the positive comments for my recent videos. Also, since the last video, I have opened up my Patreon. If you'd like to help support in purchasing future assets, I've gotten many requests for various assets to do tutorials on merging them and working with them. But I don't own all of those assets, so I'm doing a Patreon to help me purchase some of those. Also, make sure you join our Discord server. It's the place where we're going through and helping each other with various questions you run into. If you want to give me comments, feedback, or get a little extra support on some of the integrations that I'm demonstrating here, you can go into the Discord. Both of those things, the Patreon and the Discord server, are in the description, so make sure you check that out. Today, we're going to go through the process of merging the survival game template and the advanced locomotion system. So to do this, you're going to need to have both the survival game template and ALS installed on your desktop or wherever you want to put the files initially. And we're going to be merging the ALS files into the survival game template files. So to start with this, you will want to open the ALS project. And once you have it open, there's nothing extra that we really need to do to tweak anything or change anything. We'll do a migrate that just brings the files directly over. I put them both on my desktop so they're easy to work with and know exactly where they're at, but you could put these anywhere. So to begin, it probably will look something like this, where you'll have just the icons on the bottom. On the upper left, click the Show or Hide the Sources panel, and then you'll see Advanced Locomotion V3. So right click on that folder and then choose Migrate. It will list all the files. These are all the files that are linked to that folder. Go ahead and hit OK. And then you'll want to choose so here, this is survival game template, and I called it _loco for locomotion. That's going to be my combination. Right now, there's just the survival game template files in there. So I'm going to browse to that main folder, and then there'll be a content folder under there. Go ahead and click content. So you see the folder SGT. Go ahead and hit select folder, and then it'll start copying the files from ALS over to survival game template. And now I can close ALS because those files will be over there. If I go into that folder, I can see under content, I have SGT and Advanced Locomotion V3. And so that should be good. I'm going to close the ALS folder. I don't need that anymore. Let's open up the survival game template folder. All right, and same thing on the left here. See that Show or Hide Sources panel? I like to have that so I can see the folder structure that I'm working with. On there, let's go ahead and start by expanding SGT, and then we'll expand Advanced Locomotion V3. The folders are a little bit different. There's some extra folders in SGT, but if we want to start, go ahead and expand Blueprints under SGT and go to Game. So here they have a main menu controller. So that's the controller used. You will see in SGT that there's actually a main menu that pops up first. You can select. He built in a menu system to it. There's the survival character, which is pretty much what Advanced Locomotion is using. And then there's the survival controller. So once you've loaded into the game, that's the controller that is used. And then a file here, survival game mode, that sets which of these files to use. And so we'll actually get into that a little bit later. And then let's go to animations. And you can see there's the main anim BP for survival game template. So that will be fine how it is. I'm not too concerned about it. We're still under the survival game template. Let's expand meshes and then look at character. So here is the character mesh, the skeletal mesh. He separates the head and the body. So we will have to work around that a little bit so that we maintain having those two pieces separate. Here is the skeleton. If you want to open that up, you will see that mostly he just adds a weapon socket and then a socket for the flashlight, which is attached to the body. So those are the two sockets that it's using. You can close that. And now let's go up to advanced locomotion and expand characters. You'll see mannequin here. Same thing. Here's the mannequin, but you see it's all one piece. So we will actually remove this mannequin at some point and then switch over to the other mannequin. Let's open up the skeleton in here. And you can see he has the virtual bones that would allow the inverse kinematics to work. So we want to use this skeleton just because I found that when you try to recreate these, sometimes it causes problems with IK, and it's kind of a pain to get around. Maybe at some point I'll make a video on how to fix that if you've accidentally messed up your IK system in an ALS. So open up blueprints now under Advanced Locomotion V3, expand the blueprints, and you'll see that you have your ALS base character and your mannequin character. The mannequin character is just a child of base character, so it doesn't have extra blueprints in it. If you open it up, you'll notice that it's just settings. So these are all settings that have been customized, but you could open up and make it not a child blueprint. It would be parented still, but then it would just have you could add extra blueprints and code to it. It wouldn't be a true just a settings file for the ALS based character, but we're going to end up merging these two together, and that'll be fine. And then let's go to under, let's see, characters, and then mannequin animations. You will see that here is all of the ALS files. So this is the main movement that we're going to be using. So most of what it'll end up being is that things from the pretty much waist up, so spine 01 up, will be a lot of animations when you're holding a weapon and things like that. Those will be from survival game template. From the waist down, pretty much at all times, except for maybe special movements like prone, it will be using the ALS system. So those will be all of these blend spaces and everything else. So let's go ahead and let's get started. We're going to start by merging. I'm going to minimize a lot of these so it's easier for you to know exactly where we're at. So to start, we need to go to under Advanced Locomotion V3, go Characters, and Mannequin. You'll see that skeleton there. Go ahead and open it up. This is the one we're going to be going to. And then go to SGT, Meshes, Character. And what I want you to do is to right click on that mannequin skeleton and then retarget to another skeleton. You'll see here ALS is listed. You can select that. And then let's hit retarget. Now, once this finishes, we'll go back and look at the ALS skeleton. Let's see what's different. Actually, let's close it. Having it open, it doesn't seem to show the effect right away. So let's go ahead and close it. We'll go back up to ALS, Characters, Mannequin. Let's open that back up. And now you can see there's the weapon slot and there's the flashlight socket. So these are two sockets that it's added. So now this has everything that was unique about the survival game template skeleton in here. So let's save this. You can close it. And then let's go back down, SGT, Meshes, and then Character. And then we're going to select that SK_SGT mannequin skeleton, and we're going to delete it. These are all of the items that are using that skeleton currently. The reason that we have armor and everything else that's using this is because that armor is animated. So let's say you have something that, like for this chest armor, it has the arms that move and kind of go with the characters. They're swinging their arms. Well, if it were just a block, your arms would be clipping through the mesh of that skeleton. So it's actually rigged and it moves with your body. So you have to have it linked to your character skeleton so it matches the animations. And so that's why we're doing this. So in the drop down where it says none, click ALS mannequin skeleton, replace references, and then hit OK. and then go ahead and hit save selected. So those are the files that are going to be affected by it. And then I like to right click on content and fix up redirectors, and then hit save all. Okay, so now we have this skeletal mesh. And so let's go up to the one for advanced locomotion v3. Just keep in mind this mannequin underscore body name, but go to characters and then mannequin, select that mannequin, hit delete. This is under advanced locomotion. Hit the drop down and scroll down till you see mannequin body. So sk underscore sgt mannequin body. Hit replace references on that, and it'll say, are you sure? And we'll say yes. And then save selected. Save all. We'll fix up redirectors one more time. All right, so now we've got just these two meshes that we're working with compared between the two. We're down to one skeleton. So now we'll want to go ahead and open up the, let's open up each of the blueprints for the characters. So go to blueprints, and we're going to want to merge the mannequin into the ALS base first, because it just gets, there's nothing wrong with this mannequin having it here, but it does create some confusion because we're already going to be merging two together. And I don't want, a lot of times when people are working with these two, they get confused. They'll change settings, maybe the speed of the character settings in the ALS base character, and they don't know why their character speed isn't changing. It's because it's actually being overridden by the mannequin character. So it's kind of cool to have this, but when you get to a point to where you truly understand what that is, you'll be ready to create your own, and it's not very hard. So go ahead and open that up, the mannequin character and the ALS base character. And what I want to do, let's open these up side by side. So if you drag that tab out, you'll see that it creates its own. You can drag to the top and get it full height there. So if you get to where you can see this details panel on the right, you can click mesh, and you'll see something somewhat similar to what that mannequin character has here at the top. So the big difference is the mannequin character has the mesh set, the location, the rotation are set, and the initially the anim BP is set. So what we want to do is first we'll hit search on the mannequin character at the skeletal mesh. That is going to select in the background. You can't see it because these windows are in front of it, but it is selecting that mesh in the UE4 main panel, the browser. And so now I'm going to hit the left arrow, and you can see it fills in that information on the ALS base character. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the anim BP. And then I'm going to right click on location, hit copy. And then I'm going to right click on the location of the base character. I'm going to hit paste. You can see that, put that there. And I'm going to do the same thing for rotation. Right click on the name rotation, copy, and then paste it on the rotation on ALS base character. Now let's hit compile. Now you'll see those little yellow arrows. They went away because they're no longer custom settings. They're identical to the settings in the base character. Now, some of these other ones are pretty deep into the settings. So what I'm going to do is hit this little eye up here and put only modified properties. We only want to show the modified properties. And now you can see there's just a few settings left. If you look at mesh and then the override material, this is what sets the mesh on that demo character in the sample level with ALS to be kind of that tan color. And we don't need that because if you look at survival game template, he's got ammo or camo and things like that to kind of make it look a unique way. So I'm going to hit this reset. So to the right of the override materials on the mannequin character, I'm going to hit reset to default. That's going to go away. So now it just matches what this one is. And now we're going to need to click on the ALS base character, the very top tab where it says ALS base character self. And then I'm going to right click on the camera system here under mannequin character. I'm going to hit expand all, and we'll start there. So the settings that are custom, if you scroll down, you'll see kind of where these arrows end. It's just saying in the run section, something is unique. Okay, well, in that section, camera lag speed is unique. So I'm going to right click, copy that. You notice these are both 20. The two custom settings are both 20. So I'm only need to copy that once, but I'm going to type in details for search under ALS base character. I'm going to search for camera lag details. or sorry, camera lag speed. And you will see what we're looking in is understanding and looking directions. Looking direction, standing. And then we want to customize run and sprint. That's these two settings here that are currently 15. I'm going to right click and hit paste for both of those values. Now you see they both went to 20. Now I'm going to hit compile and watch this. That whole section of settings went away because it's no longer custom. Let's go ahead and put here the camera system, the first person camera socket. So that's what the socket on the skeleton that attaches the camera to. So if we just type first person, you'll see here, there's the place that we can enter that. Just right click on the mannequin character, copy that setting, right click, paste. And now that setting went away. So let's go and expand out the movement system. Then we can see the customized settings there. To find this, we need to type movement system, but we need to do it under the character movement on the lower left side. Actually, sorry, the ALS-based character sets, because these are set in advanced locomotion settings. So under ALS-based character, self, on the ALS-based character blueprint, type in the details, movement system, and you'll see there's some extra ones here. Those are because the settings are the same on both for those ones. But we need to start customizing these settings, or I guess decustomizing these settings by right-clicking. So running speed, find that on the left and paste that running speed. So now the running speed is now 380 and 380. Let's go through each of these settings and just make sure that you match those up correctly to the name that they're going to. So walking acceleration, running acceleration, walking deceleration, and the same thing, running deceleration is also 1,000, and then running ground friction. We'll hit compile and save on that. Then you can go ahead and hit save on the mannequin character if you'd like. So now all of those settings should be the same. There should be no custom settings in the mannequin character anymore. So go ahead and close that, and let's drag the ALS-based character tab back up so we can see both windows. I'm going to select the viewport, and it looks pretty close. You don't see the head in there, but we'll add that later. Another thing is this, if you look at, we have an issue with the camera because it is not, I'm going to click X on there to remove the search details. Really quick before I delete that other one, I just want to take a look. There's no camera because it's not, you can't see the blueprint details. But let's open the, you don't need to do this, but I'm just going to show you. When you open the blueprint details, see how it looks pretty much identical? But I want to look at this first person camera and let's see the differences. Why is it over here and looking like this? Well, first of all, these settings are different. If you look, the location and the rotation aren't the same. So what I'm going to do is reset some of the settings on the ALS space. We'll make it to where it matches because this is something you would normally miss. Other than that, these look pretty close to the same. So on the mannequin character, and what you could do is if you don't want to open this up, you can take note of the setting that I'm changing these to. So I'm going to right click on a location of that camera. I'm going to go to ALS base character under FP camera, right click and hit paste. So those settings are 5 and 14. So X is 5, Y is 14. And then rotation, I'm going to copy that. It's X is negative 90, Y is 0, and then Z is 90. So between these two, they now look pretty much the same. That was one of the major differences that you have to go in and fix. I wanted those to be the exact settings. So now we can close the mannequin character, compile and save this base character, and I'm pretty confident that they're both identical at this point. So let's go ahead and close both of those. I'm going to right click and do fix up redirectors really quick. Go back to that blueprints. I'm going to hit delete mannequin character. Select the ALS based character from the dropdown. Hit replace references. Go and verify that. Save selected. And let's do a quick fix up redirectors on that and then save all. All right, so now we're down to one blueprint for ALS. And then we also have the blueprint from the survival game template that is somewhat similar. So let's go ahead and open both of those up. You can drag them up there so you can see. We'll make it so you can see the actual blueprint space. So in the end, what we're going to do is actually bring in this code into the ALS based character. Now, this the reason that I'm going from the survival character to the base character is if you look on the ALS system, there's a lot of macros. And macros, when you're doing copying pasting of blueprints, it doesn't copy over the macros. And these are a pain to recreate because you have to manually recreate them all. There's a number of steps that you have to do to kind of, so these are rep notifies. To create the variables and get these rep notifies and get everything, it still is a bit of work. But I think that it's more consistent and there's less chance of error of going from survival character to the ALS based character. So go ahead, and if you need to go get a drink of water or something, we're going to start on that process. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you run into any issues, don't be afraid to rewind, pause, kind of go through sections again. But we'll go through and try not to miss a single step and make it to where by the end, you have a working survival game template combined with ALS. So let's go. Before I start making major changes, I went through and I just did a backup using the SVN method that I've done a video on before. This would be a good point to do a backup because we're getting ready to make some pretty big changes that if you have to undo or start over, it would be easier just to start from scratch. So if you're going to use the SVN system, now would be a good time to commit. If you are not sure what I'm talking about, I would encourage you to go to the YouTube channel and check out the video that I have that says back up your game files with SVN. And I go through the process of creating an local SVN server and doing incremental backups. So right now I have a backup of this exact state of the project at this moment. So if I'm making changes and I find that things don't work correctly, I can stop, revert to that backup, and start the process from this moment in time again. And so it really helps me to not have to either figure out what broke and try to get that fixed or starting over from scratch whenever a mistake is made. So I really encourage people, if you're going to be doing a lot of this, to go through and set up a system like that. So on the survival character, let's look at the class settings. Let's see what's unique and different about this particular blueprint. If you look under the interfaces, so class settings and then interfaces, you'll see there are two interfaces here that are bringing in a number of different functions and things over on the interfaces side. If you went on the ALS based character, it wouldn't have those same functions. Now we can open up class settings over there as well. It has its own interface that it's using, but that one we don't need to bring over because we're going to be merging all the survival character settings over to ALS based character. So we just need to make note of these two under survival character, the two interfaces, BP int character and BP int mesh actor. And let's go to the ALS based character and hit drop down here and type BP int and then character. And you'll see there's a blueprint listed there. I'm going to select that and do another one for BP int mesh actor. All right. So I now have under ALS based character the original ALS interface, and then BP int character and BP int mesh actor. So let's go ahead and compile and save that. And now you'll notice I have the interfaces tab that's similar to the one that's under the survival character. And so we'll go through and start filling in, because if you look under these, you'll notice that they're not filled out under ALS based character. But if you go to, so that one was get actor mesh component, you noticed it has the variable reference to the mesh. So we'll be going through and connecting those up. You will notice, so I'm just going to look at the viewport really quick for survival character. You notice that the animation, the stance is different. That's because it's using the different anim BP. That is fine at the moment. But what we will need to do is start moving some of these, or copying some of these different skeletal mesh components and other components that are up here in the components tab, because those are going to be used by some of these blueprints and different things that we're going to be setting up next. But we need to have them in the ALS based characters so that we have references to be able to actually put. To begin, I'm going to do a few things that will just make the process easier and more, I guess, less bumpy. So let's go to the ALS based character, and I'm going to get the name of here, this TP spring arm. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go to the survival character, and this one called camera boom. I'm going to select that and rename it. So if you just click it twice, it should let you enter it in there. I'm going to put that TP underscore spring arm there. And the same thing for the camera, TP underscore camera on this ALS base character. I'm going to copy that and rename that camera to TP underscore camera. Now, there is a first person camera that doesn't exist in the survival character. That's fine, but there is this camera collision. So I'm going to right click on that and hit copy. I'm going to go to that TP camera. I'm going to right click and hit paste. Now, it doesn't put it in the correct place. That's fine. You just need to drag it up to the TP camera, and now you have camera collision for that. The location isn't quite right. You notice that it's, first of all, the location is -10, 0, 0. Over here, when you drag it in, it actually goes to a different place. So what we'll do is go ahead and reset it on the ALS based character. It puts it back there, and then we'll match that setting -10, because it kind of puts it into the camera a little bit. So -10. There we go. So now our collision, camera collision, is about the same. Of course, the camera's at a different place, but that is fine. It is dragged and attached to that third person camera. Another setting that I see different is he has a spring endpoint as the socket for the camera. So it attaches it to that spring arm. We can go ahead and do that. I'm not sure if that's going to make a huge difference, but if you do search, so I'm under ALS based character TP camera, do a search on the parent socket, go ahead and set that spring arm, or the spring endpoint there. And then the location is a little bit different. And so let's go ahead and mash this. So you see under the survival character, the camera is right behind the player's head and going straight forward. Let's go ahead and match that setting. So the TP spring arm under survival character, right click location under transform, copy that. Let's do the same thing. Go to the TP spring arm on the ALS base character, transform location, you paste. And then we're going to do the same thing for rotation. That's pretty much zeros. And that is zeros there as well. We have the arm length under survival character is 150. So under the spring arm, let's make the target arm length 150 there as well. There is the socket offset. That is zeros on the survival character. So let's go ahead and reset that. And you'll notice now it's very similar to the other system. So just double checking all these settings, make sure nothing seems too different. All right. So I think we should have a similar system, other than here he has a spring arm hidden in game. We can do that. That's fine. So under the TP spring arm, ALS base character, the details go towards the bottom. You'll see hidden in game. You can check that box. Now there is a slight difference in where this seems to be sitting. You'll notice the camera, but I think it's because of the difference in the stance. So I think once you have the character standing up, I think it'll be a little bit closer, but we'll come back and kind of check that out and just make sure that that looks correct later. So, all right. So now let's start looking at some of these interfaces. So go ahead and open up. We'll start from the bottom and work our way up on the survival character side. Under get name, you'll see here on the return node, it just has title. So some dead guy. Let's go to the ALS base character. We'll go to get name. And we're just going to paste. I'm sure you could put something else in there, but I'm going to put some dead guy. We'll match that. Now we'll go to the get actor mesh component. We're not going to copy this directly. Just on the ALS base character, drag your mesh from the upper left and under components. Let me make sure we're in the right folder here first. So get actor mesh component, and then drag that mesh out here and connect it up. So that's that reference. We'll go to get lootable. I'm going to select that and hit Control C. We can right click on it and hit copy. Go to get lootable. I'm going to paste that. Now it doesn't currently exist. What we'll do is right click on that and create. And one thing you'll want to keep in mind is, are there any of these local? Under the main blueprint, there are none that are local variables, but as you start getting in some of these, some of them will be local. So we need to keep an eye out for that as we move along. But we do need to take note that under the survival character, it's in the category character. We'll save that, and then it's replicated. So we need to right click, create this under the base character, create, and then put it under character, and then make it replicated. All right, so I'm going to minimize some of these so they don't distract us. Okay, now we'll go ahead and go up to view mode, and is got a Boolean here for is first person. You notice it is replicated and under character as well. Let's go to the same one. I'm going to paste that, connect it up, and then we'll need to right click it, create that variable. I'm going to copy the category name. I could hit the drop down as well and find it at this point. And then it is replicated. You notice by default it isn't checked. Some of the Booleans will be checked as you go through, so we need to make sure we just match those as we're going through it. All right, so now we're at the view mode. Let's go and do the equipment mesh. There's some more details in here than the other ones had, but we will highlight all these. And these are just references to skeletal meshes. So let's highlight all of them from survival character, and then we're going to paste them all and put them to where we can line them up. I'm going to delete that return node. And then we're going to connect the type there, because you'll notice that's what they're doing to the switch. And then all of these are not created. So we need to start creating. So right click and create all of these. And then let's just double check what settings they have. So they're all rep notifies. So all of these notifies here that we're going to have to fill in, these will create those. So just double check mesh references. I'm going to copy that. And that'll be the same between all of them. I just want to make sure they're all rep notifies just to make sure there's no anomalies here. Okay. So we can pretty much go through and make them all that category, make them all a rep notify. So just work your way through this list, and we'll set every single one of them. And one thing you will notice is as I do this, on the left, it's adding each of those rep notify. So it's actually creating one of the categories that we need. And if you were to go through, a common mistake that people make is they'll see functions on the left-hand side and they will start creating those manually. Well, some of them are ones that you create manually, but some of them are auto-created depending on how your settings are here. So that's why it's important to kind of do these other steps first. So these are all created and you're not creating one that's not actually going to be called. So we now have all of those created. And we need to start going into these subfolders. So under survival character, there's aim and then get aim. So there's a Boolean called is aiming. Go ahead and copy that really quick. And then we'll go to under aim. You'll have to expand that under interfaces, double click get aim, and then let's create that. So right click, first you want to connect them together, right click, create that variable. We'll go back and copy the category it's in because I want them to be organized in a similar method fashion. Fill in that category and then take note it was replicated. All right, now we'll go to get life state. I'm going to copy that is dead. We'll go to get life state on ALS base character. I'm going to paste that in. Right click, create that variable. It is also, I'm copying the category and notice it's rep notify. All right, now get player mesh. This one's going to be the mesh from up top. So you can go ahead and just drag that over. I'm going to show you one more thing actually you could do. So see here, when I drag this mesh, if I drag it directly to the mesh input, it also will add it up. And then you can, it does the exact same thing. So you can do it however you prefer, but that is one way to do it. Let's go to parse crouch anim state. Select that, hit copy. Let's make sure those are the right ones. Parse crouch anim state, parse crouch anim state, same one. We'll connect those up. We'll create that. And one thing you'll notice, it doesn't have replication, but we're going to copy the category and then take note, the default value isn't the actual default for a new Boolean. So we need to check that crouch anim done box. So I put it in the category and I check the box. All right, so now we'll go to parse prone anim state. Select that. Notice that box is also checked. It has that category. So I'm going to paste it into the parse prone anim state in ALS base character. We'll connect those up. Right click, create that variable. Let's get this category here. I'm going to copy that, put it in, and then we'll check that default state box. All right, so now we're going to go up to get prone, and it's got a Boolean of is prone. We will copy those settings afterwards. So get prone, right click it. You've connected it, compile, and now let's get some of these settings. It is replicated, and we have a custom category. Now let's get crouch. Go ahead and copy that variable. Create it. We're going to copy the category, and it is replicated. like to hit save every once in a while here, just in case it crashes. So I don't have to, if all of Unreal crashes, I don't have to go back and recreate and try to figure out at what point I had hit save. So through each of these steps, I'm just hitting save on a regular basis to be safe. Now let's get head location. Now let's look and see. This doesn't exist yet. We haven't created all of this. So what I want to do, let's do, if you notice, this is not the same up here. It doesn't have the same settings that you've seen with some of the other variables. That's because it's supposed to be a reference to something over here on the upper left, a component. And so you don't want to just copy and paste this because it's not going to have it over here correctly. So what we'll do is let's select first, see where it says direction here. We need to rename that because there is a variable already created in ALS called direction, which is a float. And this creates a conflict. So I like to change this before I do the copy. So we'll call it direction 1. It's now changed any references to it throughout the blueprints to direction 1. File and save that. And then let's go ahead and select first. Let's do the flashlight because that's kind of its own little section here. So I'm going to select the flashlight and the spotlight. You can either hold shift and click the spotlight as well, or control and click both of them. I'm going to copy that, right click and copy, or control C, and then go to mesh here and right click and paste. Now it puts them at the bottom, so you'll need to then drag them up to mesh and then drag flashlight or spotlight back onto flashlight, and you'll see they are now here. But what we want to do is look at this and compare it to the survival character. I'm actually going to right click and close tabs to the right because there's a lot of stuff going on here. We'll just, that way I actually open the right tabs and make sure I show you every step that I'm doing to get there. All right, so you'll notice that this light and the way that the camera is attached is not the same now. So what we need to do is look at the flashlight. You'll notice that it's in the survival character, it's parented. It's actually attached to the flashlight socket. So we want to start with doing that. So select the flashlight there, click the search next to parent socket and choose flashlight. Now it's not turned the right direction. You'll notice there's 0 because the socket's actually aligned to be able to properly put it on the character. You don't need to be doing that with settings. So on the ALS base character, the location rotation of that flashlight, go ahead and reset there. You'll notice puts it right on the front of the character how we'd want it to. We're going to do the same thing of looking at spotlight. See that it's aligned right to the center of that light. So we want to look at location. It's a -6 and it's 10. So what we'll do is right click on the survival character, copy that location for the spotlight. And then we're going to go to the spotlight under the ALS base character, right click, paste that. Okay, that looks a lot better. Rotation doesn't look right. So under the survival character, go to spotlight, right click on that rotation, hit copy. And then go to the base character, spotlight, rotation, and paste. Okay, now that looks pretty close. This needs to be shining in front of the character. Part of it is the animations are a little bit different, so we can tweak that later. But I think that is pretty close to having those spotlights be the same, or that spotlight being the same and attach the flashlight in the proper way. So that looks good to me. Just double checking all the settings. I think we're good. So now we want to do on the survival character, we want to select head all the way down to that direction 1. Hit Control C or right click and copy. And then I'm going to right click on the mesh and hit paste. Now it puts them at the bottom. Go ahead and drag them up, attach them into mesh. You notice it puts them out of order. So we just need to keep a note of E head is attached to head. Okay. Player head location is attached to head. and direction is underneath the player head location. So the head is actually location 0, rotation 0. So let's reset those on the head location and rotation of the ALS base character. You notice it's much closer to being on the body now. It's not lining up, so you see as he's breathing, that's not the same. The reason is if you look at this anim class, it's using the other one. So let's go and hit the drop down there and choose mannequin anim BP under head under ALS base character. And now you see it's moving along properly with the character. All right, now let's look at the E head. The same thing, it's using the other animation blueprint. You want to go to the ALS base character, select the drop down and choose the mannequin anim BP. That's fine. The location is 0 and 0. We'll want to match that. So ALS base character, reset those settings. When you copy and paste them, it just puts them in the wrong place. Other than that, I think they are very similar now. This has like a 0.000. I think that's okay. Yeah, we don't need to be that accurate. Player head location, you'll notice it's 90 degrees. Now this one's more than that, so we need to reset these and then just type 90 degrees for the Z value of, or the yaw value of rotation. Okay. And that should match it up pretty closely. You notice that the player head location is actually socketed to the head. So you see that it wasn't quite lining up the same. So what we need to do is go to this ALS base character. When you make sure you have player head location selected, and then click that search under parent socket. And then we want to scroll down until we see head, which is towards the bottom. All right. So now that is properly attached to the character. Go ahead and select direction. Now these are 0, 0. Reset those on the ALS base character to 0 and 0s for the location and rotation. And then all the rest of the settings should be the same. All right, so that gets that initial set there properly done. Let's go ahead and copy really quick the torso and all of these from torso down to bag. Either Control C or right click and hit copy. Right click on mesh, hit paste. You see there at the bottom. Go and drag those up and attach them to mesh. And these are all just directly underneath of mesh. You see these are all on the same level. But let's look at all these settings. You'll notice that none of them are parented. Oops. And none of them have special location and rotations. The main thing is just the anim BP. So what we can do is, with these all selected, or if you deselected them accidentally, go ahead and select them all again. Hit the anim class and drop down and go ahead and hit mannequin anim BP. Now for each of these, they're all using the mannequin anim BP. You'll notice that the rotation and location are set to a value. You just want to reset those all to 0. So you could either select them all and hit reset, or you could do them one at a time. Okay, so now we have all of the same components. If you look at this, everything that we have on this side, we now have an equal version that seems to be in the same location and set up correctly. So we can continue going through and finishing these settings under interface. So let's go back to get head location. And the component in the upper left under ALS base character, click that player head location, drag it out. Let's connect it up to the head location input. Go to get camera. There's all 3 of these cameras here. So to save a little time, we'll select them all. Copy those, right click and copy. Let's go to the camera on here, get camera. I'm going to paste those. Since I named them all the same, they all correctly reference. So we can connect camera up to camera, arm up to boom, and collision up to collision. Compile and save that. And now I think we're just down to the flashlight, whether the flashlight's on. So go to parse flashlight state, select flashlight on Boolean, right click and copy or Control C. Go to the parse flashlight state on ALS base character. Let's paste that there and then connect it up. We want to right click and create that variable. Once again, no local variables, but we're going to copy that category. And it is a rep notify. On a side note, just for, not that we've done this, but if you do, if you accidentally click rep notify and when you meant to do replicate on, you'll notice it creates a rep notify over here. And when you undo it and put it back to replication, it doesn't remove that. So keep an eye out for ones that you might have accidentally created by clicking the wrong on any variable, accidentally hitting rep notify. And then you can delete those if they're not supposed to exist. But just keep an eye on that because you would have extra ones, extra code in there that doesn't need to be. So very good. So I think we now have all of these interfaces set up correctly. I'm just going to go through each of these and make sure that I didn't miss any. And let's go ahead and compile and save this. Just because we make a lot of changes, I'm going to right click on the main folder area, fix up redirectors, do a save all. And I'm going to take a second to close this. And then I'm going to do a backup just to make sure, because this is a good point. We've done a lot of changes. This is another good SVN backup point. Now that the backup's done, let's go ahead and start looking at what is inside of some of these functions, the rep notifies and things like that. So go to their survival character first. Go to the construction script. You'll notice there's nothing extra in there. So there's nothing we have to worry about in the construction script. There are some extra functions that don't exist. So if they don't say rep notify here, then notice they've not been created on the ALS based character side. So what we want to do is actually create these functions. So first, get flashlight material. I'm going to click to get the name of that. I'm going to Control C it. And then under ALS based character, I'm going to click the plus on function and create a new function. I'm going to paste that name in there. And then we're going to go open that up. You'll see there's code. So we'll highlight all that, Control C or right click and copy. Then we're going to paste it in here. Go ahead and connect that up. And you'll notice that it has, so first of all, it's referencing the flashlight from the components. That's fine. And you notice that it doesn't have all the settings on the upper right, but there is a variable that's not created. So we need to, first of all, right click and create it, but let's copy that category name really quick and then remember that it's replicated. So right click and create that. Put the category name in there and let's put replicated. All right, so that function now exists on ALS-based character. Let's go through the rest of them. So set new equipment. There's a decent amount of information here. Go and highlight everything under there. Actually, sorry, we need to create it first. So click the name first, set new equipment, and then go to function, create it, that exact same name in there. So set new equipment. And now let's highlight all of this and then paste it. Go and connect up that initial pin. You'll notice that it's missing something. If you go to set new equipment, you notice on the top, it's got two variables. And so what we'll want to do is copy those one at a time. So the input, the name is selection. Select the input there. And we'll go ahead and add one, call it selection, same name. Then we need to look at the category that it's in. So ESGT equipment type. So on the drop down of the ALS base character, ESGT equipment type. You see there at the bottom, that's the exact one I was using. Same thing, there's one called new param, which is a skeletal mesh. Hit the plus there. Oops. The name in new params, which is default, and then search for skeletal mesh. We'll select that. So now we'll have these actual connectors that we can do. So if you want to connect that first one, and then we need to create this reference. So where it says new mesh here, notice there's no special settings for it. So we just need to right click and create the variable. And one thing I want to note here though. So before we do that, so I'm going to Control Z to undo that. So it's uncreated. Look at this. It's a local. I'm just going to create this. Show you. Notice how there's extra settings up here. Well, that's different than what we saw over here. There aren't as many possibilities of changing things. We need to undo that and right click and do create local variable. So now you see it matches. It doesn't have all those extra settings and it's added it down to this local variables. And what that does is it creates a variable that only exists inside of this function. It's a local variable. It only exists here. And so you could have multiples of this named variable, and it's not going to conflict with other areas, and it pretty much forgets it once it leaves this function, which is fine. So we've got this new variable here, no special settings. You can hit compile here and drag that and connect it up. And they're all referencing the same new mesh, which we just created. All of these are notifies, which it created properly. We're all over here. All right, so I think with minimal work, we have pretty much created the exact same setup. All right, and then finally, we have hide mesh for player. So go ahead and copy that name. Hit plus on ALS base character functions, hide mesh for player. Let's go and open it up. You will see that there is an input here. So hide question mark. So let's go ahead and copy that name and then go to this input under and click plus parameter, hide question mark, and then change it to a Boolean. Now you will see that matches. So let's go and now copy all of this. And then we will paste it. There is a variable that we need to create. Let's just double check. Oh, look at there. That one is a local as well. You notice there's less settings on the upper right here. So let's right click, create local variable, connect up the state, file that. Okay, so the rest of these are all created. And so you should be fine there. So now I think we have all of the same these rep notifies. I'm gonna matching those up. Yeah, they're about the same. So I don't see any extras. So let's start working through each of these and we will start from the bottom up. So let's go first. We've already done the hide mesh for player. Just did that one. So now we need to go to the onrep bag SK. So notice there are no custom settings for this. So go ahead and just highlight all that, copy it, Control C or right click and copy, and then go to onrep bag SK in the LS base character, paste that. Here we go. So now we can compile. These are already all created. They're referencing existing items and variables that are already there. So we're good on that. Now we'll go to onrep head sk, highlight all of that, find it, exact same, paste those into there on the ls space character, connect them up. Same thing, everything is fine. So we'll go to torso. The left hand okay. We will now do the left leg. Copy and paste all of that. Left foot. Right hand. Right leg. Right foot. We've already done the new equipment, the get flashlight material. So now we're on to the onrep flashlight on. There are some variables that we will need to create here. So first of all, we look at the flashlight on. That's already been created somewhere else. So those are identical, but we do have flashlight intensity that needs to be created. So let's go ahead and look at that. Here's the category. It is replicated, and it looks like it's the default setting. So, and it is not, it's not local. So I'm going to set the category. I'm going to set it to replicated. File that. Now let's go to the flashlight emissive category there. It is replicated. No other settings seem to be changed. Okay, so that is now set. Now we want to go to onrep is dead. So copy all of that content, go to the onrep is dead ALS space character, paste that. Connect them up, do a quick compile. And it looks like everything is connected there properly. So we have now created all of these onreps in the proper way, without any kind of duplication or creating something in a way we shouldn't have. And so let's go ahead and do another quick backup, and then we'll get started into getting some of the content from the event graph copied over. And just do a quick fix up redirectors and save all before you close and back that up if that's what you're choosing to do. If you're not doing backups, you can just leave it open and continue on. Now that you've managed your backup, let's get started on the event graph of the survival character. So to start, we'll want to go ahead and copy. So hit Control A, Then Control C or right click on one of the nodes and select copy. And then go to the ALS based character, open up the event graph. Let's paste everything in there. So the first thing I do after doing a paste like this is with everything selected. So after you paste, you'll see how everything's highlighted, or you could select over everything. I like to right click and refresh nodes. And you'll see that anything that might have been red should look normal again. And then let's do a search. So in the left-hand side, and this is under the ALS based character, search for custom. You'll notice we have one called custom event. That means that there was a duplicate event being called. So we can go to the old one and see that that is event begin play. So event begin play is right here at the top of ALS based character. And so what we can do is just bring it up here right above the section that we've made and delete that event that's being called there. Let's drag this back a little bit. Do a sequence. You can line it up and bring one pin down. So now we have our event begin play calling the normal things that were under survival character. All of the rest of these are pretty much custom events. And it looks like everything was brought over correctly. So now let's look at the old one and just make sure that there's nothing that seems out of place. So we've got all of these that just copied over. They should match. And now, of course, in ALS, we'll have a lot of extras, so it's kind of hard to really compare, but these will be the ones that you're seeing right now in the event graph. All of our functions are correctly brought over. Our interfaces are correctly brought over. And as far as variables, let's compare some of these. The mesh references, these should all be listed. And you could just, if you look, all of these are rep notify. And you could verify that at this time. Just make sure everything you copied over. Because we didn't find any areas when we copied over the information from our rep notify, I'm pretty sure that those are all correct. Then we had the flashlight data. Now, one thing that was not brought over, if you look under components, the reference for this is different, and that's just because we copied this over, but it'll be under components here most likely. So if you want them to be exactly the same, you could create flashlight components. So this category up here that's in survival character for the two, you can select that, Control C it, then go to the flashlight, paste it in the category. Same thing with the spotlight. All right, and now we have data and components. Those will match between the old blueprint and the new. Under character, let's just look at some of these. You have lootable inventory and is first person. Those are there. Is dead. It looks like it didn't copy that over into the correct. Those data movements. Is dead is under movement. Oh, and yeah, that's correct. So that's there. And then we have all of these, which is, seems like we're missing something. So let's just compare these. Is sprinting, is aiming. I don't see is sprinting, but I see is aiming. So let's see what happened. Okay, there is no is sprinting. So let's find references to this. Okay, so this is being created here. So this tells me that there's probably a missing variable. There we go. So When we compile this, the variables, all the variables exist except for, it looks like, 2. So we'll need to create those, and then we'll put them in the correct category. Let's go ahead and look at his sprinting first. I'm going to copy that category information and just take note that it's replicated. We'll right click on that, create variable, put it in the correct category, and replicated. Compile and save that. And now let's look at show flashlight. Now, this is a notify, and we'll have to see why we didn't copy that information over. Because if you look here in the notifies, flashlight is on, but not show flashlight. So let's go ahead and let's get this created. It is a rep notify, and take a note that the default value is checked. So we will need to fix that. So let's go ahead and right click. There are no locals or anything in the main event graph. Right click and create variable. Let's put it in the correct category. And it is a rep notify. So we will need to go through and fix that, compile, and make sure you check the box for show flashlight. So it defaults to being on, or being on the body. All right, so let's go ahead and open up this this show flashlight and just make sure that we have everything in there. Okay, I'm going to copy this information and paste it over on the show flashlight. Just want to verify. In the event graph, we're setting it, and here is where we're getting whether or not to show the flashlight. So I want to make sure that that wasn't duplicated, that we actually did it in the right way. So now we have all of the information from the event graph brought over, and it is correctly being set. All the variables are created, and we can start looking at what is duplicate information. So this would be a good point because we're getting ready to mess with some things in the controller. Just do a quick backup again really quick to be safe and make sure that everything is ready to go. And if you need to roll back, you could roll back to this exact point. So if we're comfortable that everything exists from the old survival character to the new ALS base character, we can go and actually remove that survival character. But let's just verify really quick that all of these are properly placed. So character, we have the flashlight. Go ahead and do the character components really quick. So we have character, components, head, and I'm just wondering if all this information is properly tagged. So what I'm going to do is get the category of the player head location. Put it in the correct category. The direction 1. I'm just doing a search. This is just if you really want it to be in the same sorting order. Since I'm going to be comparing a lot of things, I just want to make sure that all of this lines up with the two characters so I can really quickly compare and show you. So the camera, we want all of that. So camera collision, spring arm, and camera. Okay, so now we should have that line up. All right, that looks the same. We had all these movement ones, data. Flashlight should be the same. Yep. All right. So I'm pretty comfortable and confident that this is going to be pretty close now. So what we're going to do is let's do a test really quick. So I'm going to go to survival character, hit browse. It's going to take me to that folder. I want to see what is relying on this character. So if you right click on it and do reference viewer, you'll see that the HUD refers to it. The game mode, where it's setting that as the default player character. The survival controller references that file, and also the survival game mode references that file. That what I'm looking to see is, for instance, the AI and things like that aren't, from what I can tell, caring about this file. So that's good, because I don't want to mess with the AI yet. So let's go ahead, and what I'd like to do first, just so I have a reference of this, is right click on it and duplicate it. So this is kind of the backup copy. It's not linked to anything at the moment. Nothing is relying on it. But this way, if for some reason I missed something, I can go back and look at that and see all the code without it really interfering with the rest of the system. So now I'm going to select survival character, select delete, and then I want to select the ALS based character to replace it and replace all references. Hit save selected. I'm going to right click, fix up redirectors there. And then I'm going to do a quick play just to see. There probably won't be a huge difference from originally, because we haven't really, there's some things we're not switching back and forth yet. So this immediately makes me take note that there's a few settings I want to change. And so let's go ahead and open up the ALS based character blueprints. So under content, advanced locomotion v3, blueprints, ALS based character. And then let's make sure under the ALS based character that we go to the right hand side, scroll down to advanced locomotion system, state values. And what I want to switch is change it from the ALS rotation mode from velocity direction to looking direction. And what this will do is it will make it so that the camera stays behind the player. So you now see when I go backwards, it is not having the player face me. So it's actually keeping behind the player. And I think that just works out better for the type of game this is going to be doing. So let's do a quick test to see what isn't working. I'm going to just pick up a gun here. Don't really need to fire it, but let's open up the inventory, select it, and equip that. Now the gun is in the hand, right? But it doesn't raise the weapon at all. So it is attached, but it is doing nothing to actually position it correctly. And that's because a lot of that is set in the NMBP, and we're still using the NMBP for ALS. So let's go ahead and get started on that. First, I'm going to get some of these events that we're not using cleared out. So if after you've compiled the ALS based character, you'll see here a list of input actions that aren't actually created in the project. So let's go and select this one that says selection rotation mode 2. And what I want to do is remove those, because I'm not going to be switching back and forth between velocity direction and looking direction. So go ahead and delete those inputs there. That'll compile and save that. That'll take those off the list. Same thing with the walk action. I don't really care to have the character walking. If you want to assign a key, you can still keep that. But I'll just remove the reference there since I'm not going to be using it. At the top, there's a lot of inputs that might conflict with some of the things we're going to do. So in this debug section, I remove all of these. You're not required to. You could assign them to something different, but I just remove them because I'm not needing to debug and see all these things, especially like R. When you restart the level, it will, or maybe you're hitting R to reload the weapon, it'll restart the level. So it just creates some odd issues that you probably don't want to run into. So you can see I've deleted all the events from there. At the same thing on the very bottom, you can see set right foot. I'm not going to have any right foot forward. I'm going to have all left foot forward, since that's generally what animations you buy from the Unreal Marketplace. We'll be using a left foot forward stance. You can delete E for that. And let's go through and find the equivalent actions for some of these different things. So first, let's go ahead and start at the top, and we have our move forward / backwards, which is actually the same. If you go to find results and you type move forward, that doesn't exist in here, but it does exist in another area of the survival game template. So you got to go to blueprints, game. You see the controller here? Go ahead and open up the survival controller. So now here, let's type move forward. You can see an input axis here, move forward. Okay, so this is in this project. So if you go to edit project settings, you'll notice that in the inputs, this one's move forward. If you were to open up ALS, the default ALS project, it would be that move forward / backwards that you see here. So that's why it's not finding it. But what we want to look at is, what is it doing? Well, here, move character based on input. It's doing a normal add movement input, but the difference is it does a check here for allow movement. It wants to make sure that it's in a position to allow movement before it actually does it. Over here, under ALS, it's got some other things that it's doing. So we're going to have to go through and combine these in a way that maintains functionality while still not having them be one in the controller and one in the base character. So what we can do is actually reference this allow movement and do a branch in the other side. But to test this really quick, let's go ahead and copy these. You see these two? Control C, or you can right click and hit copy. Just want to see what happens. I'm going to paste them here. So those are the proper inputs. And then do a control drag of the pin there. And a control drag. And then we'll go ahead and connect these up and delete the old ones that don't work. We'll just connect those forward. So we'll compile that. I'm going to delete this off of the survival controller, and let's just do a quick test to see what happens. Okay, see, it's letting me turn in place, but it's not actually moving me forward. So it is reliant on that other one. So let's see what we can do to make this actually allow the player to move forward. To begin with, let's undo that action that we just did. So we had removed the event inputs here from survival controller, and we just had them in movement inputs. So go ahead and control left click each of those. So you have your move forward and your move right. Either right click and then copy, or hit control C. Then let's go back to the survival controller and control V, or paste that in there. We want to just put them back for now. We'll connect these back up. So drag your exec over to that branch. Next, the axis. And do the same thing for right. And connect that up. Now, we're going to do a trick here to make it so that we are able to actually use both sets of these, because rather than restructure everything, I just want to be able to have both the controller and this character know when it's moving forward and know when it's moving right. So select on the ALS based character, select the move forward input axis. And you see on the upper right where it says consume input, uncheck that. And what that will do is allow both of them to receive that input at the same time. Do the same thing for move right. Hit compile and save on that. And then go over to your controller. And for those two input axes, also uncheck the box, consume input. Hit compile and save. And then let's do a test here. All right, so now I'm able to run around, able to jump. But there's one thing here I'm not able to do, and that is crouch. Now, the camera moves, so it's trying to crouch, but it's not actually doing it. So let's take a quick look at crouch. In the ALS system, crouch is that stance action is what they call it. So stance action, and then in the controller, go to find results and search for crouch action. You'll see there input action crouch. I'm going to make a copy. So right click and copy that input action crouch. You can right now you can hit that consume input and uncheck that box, hit compile and save. Then go over to your ALS base character, paste a copy there. So control V. And then just replace that pressed pin. So it's now using that one. It doesn't copy and paste the consume input checkbox. So you'll need to uncheck that, hit compile and save again. Let's do one more quick test. See if that was all. All right, it's still not crouching. The camera's moving. It's pretty much doing the same thing as before. So there's something else that is causing an issue with that. And I did a little research and found something kind of strange. If you go over to the survival controller, there's an input called any key. That's if you're dead, you can hit any key and you'll respawn. Well, I'm not sure why, but that is consuming the input. So any key on the keyboard is consuming the input and only allowing this input to use it. So that, for me, I think it's when, I don't know if it's something over in the LS base controller and it's not here or vice versa, but this I found an issue with. So if you uncheck consume input on any key, compile and save that, then let's go to the main menu and let's hit play. That corrects the issue of not being able to crouch. So I'm sure some people would sit there and go through all kinds of places trying to figure that out, but that's a very simple fix. Just uncheck the any key consume input, and then it allows you to actually crouch. So now that we're in here, let's take a look and see what is working and what's not working up to this point. So I'm going to run over here. There's a bag that has a weapon in it. I'm going to equip this weapon. Over here where you can see. Okay, so the gun stays at down at the side. It's not doing any kind of aim or anything like that. When I right click and aim, it zooms in, but the weapon is not being raised at all. So we are going to have to look at that and just see what might be causing that issue. Also, you may have noticed that he doesn't go into any kind of a ready stance whenever you pick up an item. We want that to where that character puts its left foot forward, because most of those animations of holding a gun are relying on the left foot forward. So let's really quickly just go through and clean up these errors, because I know this for some people, this will drive them crazy, seeing all these input errors in the ALS base character. So I'm going to click the first one with the camera. Now, survival game template has a lot of things that it does with the camera already, and it even has for tabbing between shoulders. It has all that code in there. So I'm not really concerned about the ALS camera system. I'm going to hit compile and say, I'm going to delete that and then hit compile and save. You can always come back and try to use some of this, but I think you'll find he has these features already built into the system. Same thing with ragdoll. I don't want to accidentally ragdoll the character. So I'm going to delete that ragdoll input action. I don't want to use some of this aim action. So really what I'm actually going to delete, because he already has the camera zooming in when you aim. And we're going to do something to where this aim action is turned on in a different way. The ALS aiming will be turned on in a slightly different way. So let's go ahead and delete this input action for aiming. Let's compile and save and see what we have left. So we've got sprint, which let's go ahead and make this one work, just because their should sprint is being set. So I want to make sure that that is set between both of them, because sometimes in the survival controller, it may be basing an upper body animation speed or something based on the fact that it's sprinting or not. So just to be safe, we're gonna find, so type sprint action in the survival controller. And then you've got this where it's toggling that. I'm going to select that, right click, hit copy or hit Control C. And then you can unclick that consume input. That's fine. Compile and save that. Same thing for the sprint with the sprint action, just Control V and then drag the pins by Control and then dragging the mouse. So hold down Control, click, and drag those inputs over to the input action sprint. And you can just put it right back into place of where that was. Make sure that you check that box, uncheck the box so consume input is not checked. Compile and save. And then you should see both of these not having that. So let's go back to the ALS-based character. Let's look at jump. So jump seems to be working correctly. And it's really the main thing that we would get is an uncrouch on jump. So right now I'm going to delete this and let's just see if all the behavior is correct. If not, we can implement some features to kind of make that similar. And then you have your camera input. This is very basic. It doesn't have any kind of variables it's setting. It's really just putting input into the mouse, which is already happening. The survival controller is taking the mouse input and correctly moving the mouse around the player. So we're going to delete this whole camera input section. So go ahead and select it and hit delete, compile and save that. And I'm just going to scroll back and we can see we've gutted a lot of these things down to the most basic actions. And we're taking most of the things from the survival controller and using them over there. So let's go ahead now and while we're we need to go actually into the AnimBP. So let's close this project settings and go to the main menu where you can see the content folder in the lower left. And then we want to go to under Advanced Locomotion V3, go to Characters, Mannequin, and then you'll see Mannequin AnimBP. Let's open that up really quick. So we don't have very much custom code in here that's related to the survival game template yet. This is all ALS code for the most part. So we will be going through the process of merging sections of these two. And so we'll also need to open the AnimBP for the mannequin in survival game template. So if you go to SGT or whatever that folder is named for you for survival game template, and go to animations, you'll see the SGT AnimBP. Now, before we copy this or start making changes to it, I want to make a duplicate of how it is right now because I don't want to mess with the AI's movement system. We're going to change some things, and I just want to have a copy because eventually I'm going to try to delete this. But I want to make the AI, the ones that are running around and shooting at you, I want them to be reliant on their own blueprint. That's not going to be trying to integrate anything with the ALS system. I don't want them trying to do IK. I don't want them doing any of those things. So just to be safe, SGT and BP, right click on it, and let's just make a duplicate right now. And then at the end, rather than one, I'm going to put dash AI. So that's my AI NMBP. If I don't mess with that, everything should be fine with it concerning them. What we can do now to actually make them use that is to go to under blueprints. So SGT blueprints AI, you'll see this BP SGT NPC example 01. So let's open that up. And then go to, on the upper left under components, go to mesh. And then you see this SGT NMBP underscore C. You need to hit that drop down and then go to the SGT NMBP dash AI. Select that one. And now, regardless of what we do, it's using this already configured NMBP that's been created for it. So when I go through and maybe do a delete of the old NMBP to have it replace all references, just to be, I like to do that so that everywhere is properly referenced to the correct NMBP for the mannequin, then we don't have to worry about the AI breaking. We'll have another issue that will come up that we'll correct at the time, because I don't want to just fix everything at this moment and then have you not realize why we're doing something. So we'll have another issue come up and we'll kind of tackle those as they come. But for now, it has its own NMBP and we'll be good with that. So you can just make sure that's saved. You can close the NPC example for now. And then let's get back into the NMBP as well for the survival game template. So go back to SGT animations and then open up that first one that doesn't have the AI on there. So now we have two. We have the mannequin NMBP and we have the SGT NMBP. So to be in the same place, we want to double click event graph on both of those. And then we're going to be at that screen. You can zoom out and we'll start seeing what we want to merge between the two. Under class settings, there's no interfaces on the survival game template version. There is an ALS interface, but we're going to be merging into the mannequin NMBP. So we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about bringing any of those settings in beforehand like we did with the blueprint. To begin, let's just, in the event graph, select all of the blueprint that you see there, all of this code. Once it's highlighted, right click and hit copy or hit Control C. Then in the mannequin NMBP, paste it somewhere. And I like to bring it right about here in the code because we're going to be removing this section and then deleting it. Now, you'll see that there is a reference to the pawn, so pretty much the character, that is missing. It's not created here in the variables in the lower left. So to kind of get around this, we're going to use a trick that will rename. It'll take control of that and it will rename all those variables to something that we can use. To do that, let's just, in the upper left here under initialize animation, where it says set ALS based character, I'm going to select it just once so you can see it highlighted. In the upper right where it says variable name, I'm going to first select all of that. So I hit Control A, the whole name is selected. I'm going to right click and copy that name really quick. And then I'm going to rename it to pawn. So it's the exact same name as the one below. You can see now all of those have been taken over. And then to just keep consistency, I'm going to then rename it back to ALS based character. So I select it all again, Control A, and then a Control V. I renamed it just to the exact same name that it was before. And these all renamed. All references to it have renamed themselves. And that's totally okay with me. So we have the custom event, which just out of good habit, we always go and search for the word custom after we do a control paste. This custom events is not one from copying over. It is actually something created on purpose, collapsed graph. But there is one that just says custom event here. That means there was already something existing when we did the paste. So we can go to the original, take a look at that, and see that it's event blueprint update animation, which is right next to this one that I dragged it by. We're also doing something that is duplicate. We don't need this ALS based character here. It's already being set when we initialize the animation. So we have a reference to our character at this moment. We don't need to do it again. We're already making sure that the input, the movement is valid right here. And so we don't really need to see that the character is valid. So what we'll do is just delete all this code before the sequence on the code we had copied in. I'm going to hit delete there. Then I'm going to select all of that code that we pasted in. I'm going to drag it a little bit closer up here. Right about there. I'm going to extend out this update every frame a little bit and make some room here for another sequence. I could drag these all down and use that one, but we'll just drag off of true and search for sequence. And then take the then one and drag it down to that sequence. So we now have all that code to the right. I don't like how this crosses over, so just to be nitpicky, I'm going to double click on that pin and then organize it a little bit. And then let's take a look at this code that we copied in. We have, first of all, it's checking to see if the character is falling. Mostly that's important because there might be some animation that it cares about that wants to make sure whether or not you're falling. We probably won't use this, but we can look at that here a little bit later. You've got your speed and direction being set here. We really don't need to do that because it's already being done in these blueprints. So what we'll do is click this get control, direction and speed for animation control. And let's move that up so it's out of the way. Disconnect that pin. So right click and then break link to set direction under is falling. And then do the same thing for the branch that's right before is jogging. I'm going to right click on the left side of that, break that link so it's up by itself. And this speed here, we could do this a better way. I mean, you could say, if we wanted to keep this, we could say speed. We'll keep this as is for now. Another way that we could do this is we could actually, in the ALS movement mode, actually gate, I think it is. Let's try this. Okay. So what we're doing is we're dragging ALS gate and doing a get on it. And then we're dragging off of that. And we're going to hit equals equals. You see where it says equals enum? We want to see if they are, so there's walking, running, sprint. If they are going above, here it's set for 210, you mark it as jogging. I'm not 100% sure if this is considered, I would assume this is if you're going faster than a run, that then you would be jogging. But the thing is, I think that this would also count as a sprinting. So we don't really want to say, all right, are you running, I mean, we could say, are you not walking? But that may bring in some issues with falling, or that could bring issues with swimming, with all kinds of other things, that it may say that you're jogging or not jogging, just because you happen to be going over a certain speed at the time. So let's not do it this way. Let's delete this ALS gate and the and setting which one you want to watch, and let's just actually pull speed. We already have a variable for speed. So in the search on the lower left, type speed, drag speed from the anim graph out there, and type and do a get. And then we'll be just dragging and replacing that pin up top. So from speed to the top part of that check, greater than check, we're now just going to see, is the speed above 210? If it is, great. So select all that and kind of drag it near the is falling and connect those pins. So now you're going to be checking to see if the character's falling, and you're going to see if the character is jogging. The crouching and the prone, that's fine. The ALS-based character, to check and see if they're aiming. We'll clean this up a little bit. Just bring them a little closer together. Drag them over and make these boxes fit a little bit better. All right, so let's clean this up totally now. So we have down here where it wants to set the pitch. We don't need to do that because it's already being set. We don't want to affect that. It makes it so that you really struggle to see some things. It limits your motion when you do it this method, to where you can't quite see all the way up and down, and it really makes it kind of difficult to maneuver around. So I'm going to delete this whole section here. I mean, if you wanted to, you could just disconnect that pin and drag it down, but we can always reference back and recreate that if we ever needed to. Now, we need to create these variables, and just to be safe, look at each of them. Look at, there's no, in the original NMBP, there's no special settings for it. They're just very basic Booleans. So we can go through and we can just recreate those. So for each of them, right click on, in the mannequin NMBP, is falling, create variable. Same thing for jogging. Right click on that, create variable. Crouching, create it. Prone, we'll create it. And is aiming, we will create it. So we've got those all made, and let's do a test to see what's happening at this point. Make sure everything's still working. We've gone through, we've added some code. We're able to move around. Let's pick up a weapon here. We haven't really done any code, but let's just take note of what's not happening when we equip this weapon. Okay, so he's just standing in a very normal manner. He's just holding it to his side. No special stance. So this would be a good place to add that code to where he goes into the aiming stance, which isn't that he's always going to bring the weapon up, but he's going to put that left foot forward, and it'll make it easier for us to then start putting in the other code to match up to it. So we will do this by first, let's get the player controller, and we'll look at the references up here. So under variables, we're in mannequin NMBP. Go to the variables, hit that drop down, go to references. And I first am just going to pull this ALS-based character because we have a reference to it already. And then off of that, I'm going to drag. I'm going to get controller. So here I've got the ALS-based character. I'm going to get the controller of that character, which is the survival control. It will end up being the survival controller over there. And then off of that, I'm going to drag manager. Oops. It doesn't like that. So let's do this a little bit differently, because this obviously isn't pulling in all the values that we need. And so let's not pull it this way. Let's not do it from the base character. I'll show you a different way to do it that's actually going to show me the values I want. So get player controller. So right click and then search for get player controller. And we're going to cast to the survival, that controller up there. Cast to survival controller. Now, we'll have to connect the pin to have it actually reach this point. And then off of there, where it says as survival controller, now let's try get manager inventory. Then scroll to the bottom. See where it says here, it's got a reference to that variable inside of the controller. The get manager inventory is one of the components that are there. Do that really quick, and then let's see what I'm talking about. So these are all components having to do with the survival game template. So this is the one I just referenced, the manager inventory. This is the manager inventory. He's really broken it up into a lot of separate components. That would make it easy for you to remove certain pieces, because you could disable that component and it would probably just make it so that feature didn't work. So we are testing now from the inventory. We want to see if the player has an item equipped. So I'm going to drag off of this inventory. I'm going to do get equipped item. So it has a variable reference here for the equipped item. So I'm going to drag this here, and I'm just doing something to kind of stack them so this isn't a really long. I want to keep it in this space, but really they are just going from survival controller to another variable. It's checking the inventory. And then from there, it's getting me the reference for the equipped item. All I have to do is drag off of that. I want to know, is that valid? And we're going to use the one that's the function. It's just going to return a true, pretty much say yes, if the item is in the hand, in that player's hand, is valid, if it's an item that you can hold. But then we'll need to create a new variable, because we don't have one that just says, are you holding an item? So in the lower left, where it says variables, you need to click plus variable. And let's create one called holding item. And then we'll drag that out, and we're going to do a set this time. Let's connect the pins up and then connect that Boolean variable. So if you're holding an item, this will be true. Then we need to do something with that. So drag off of the set. Actually, that won't give you what you need immediately. We want to have something run on the ALS based character from here. That thing that says the ALS aiming event. Say to the ALS based character, I am aiming. We will need to use this reference. So under references, drag that ALS based character out and do a get on it. And then from that, we need to drag set ALS aiming. So here you'll see set ALS aiming event. Click that. And then connect those two pins. And then connect the value of that set. So whatever that set ends up being, because this is just going to be changed between true and false. If you're holding an item, we're going to say ALS aiming is true. Clean this up a little bit. And if it's not, it will change you from the moving stance. Well, let's test it out now. Let's hit compile and save. And we'll run and go pick up that weapon and see if we notice any kind of a change. All right, you've noticed that he's now, move forward. He's now in a left foot forward stance. Let's unequip the weapon. Now he's in the normal stance. You also notice the camera gets closer when you have a weapon. So it's better for aiming. You can click that and unequip. And there you go. So we now have the stance alternating back and forth properly when you're holding a weapon. So we need to start adding some of the code in there to allow for the player to actually hold the weapon up now, because we don't have any of that code existing at this time. So in the AnimBP for the survival game template, go to the anim graph. We've already copied all over all the functions from the event graph, but we'll need to select all and right click on one of those nodes, select copy, or you can hit Control C, and then go to the anim graph on the survival game, or on the mannequin, which is the ALS one. Expand graphs if it's minimized, and double click on anim graph, and then you should see something that resembles this. We're going to Control V and paste that code that we just copied into that section. So we now have the ones from the survival game template, and here is the mannequin code. Let's combine these two things. First, this is the base locomotion from survival game template. We're going to move that off to the side. Right click on that and break that link. We're not going to be using that at the moment. I'll keep it there for a minute just in case it's easier for you to reference to this one, but I'm going to be jumping back and forth to, if you go to the AnimBP for survival game template, double click on that base locomotion, and you can see the code there. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to delete the base locomotion from mannequin AnimBP so that I don't have the extra code in this. And then drag the main state machine and the two references that are there. I want to drag those just above the survival game template code. Move it up a little bit. And then also the aim offset code. I'm going to right click on the right side of that aim offset and break that link. Then drag it over so it's right next to that base pose from the survival game template. Then drag and connect those poses. The animation pose on both sides, from the aim offset to the base pose on the very left hand side pretty much of the survival game template. And then the remaining code, let's drag all the stuff left over from ALS. Click and drag that to the very end of that survival game template code, and then connect those pins. So we now should be using all of the different pieces from that anim graph outside of the locomotion. So the state machine is still the old original, well, ALS state machine. Not using anything in that part from survival game template, but we're using some of these other references. You will see that pitch has not been created, but what I like to do is use this aim offset X and Y, which the Y is pitch. We'll select that and either hit Control C or right click and hit copy, then paste it down below and Control click and drag that what reference was to pitch to the Y. We'll do another paste, do the same thing for the second one. We'll put it to the left there. Compile and save that. And you should have no errors at this point. So I'm going to go to the main menu. I'm going to hit a save all, right click, fix up redirectors. And I'm going to do a backup really quick, just so that we always have this. I'm using the SVN. So if you have any questions of how to do that, you're not sure how you should correctly back up your system, I do have that YouTube video you can go check out to start backing up your system. But I'll take this moment to do a quick backup so that if anything breaks, we'll use this as a good starting point. I now have a backup, so I feel confident in going back into the mannequin AnimBP and starting to mess with this main state machine. So if you go to, on the lower left of the mannequin AnimBP, double click on anim graph. You should see that main state machine from ALS that you connected up towards the beginning of all that sequence. Double click on that. And then you'll see the state machine, all the code for ALS. If we go over to the SGT AnimBP, double click on anim graph. You'll see at the beginning of that one that says base locomotion. Open that up, and here's the various code for the survival game template. It is broken up in kind of a strange way, so we will pull pieces and fix this for the most part. And we'll do that to start by first going to Locomotion, and this is under the mannequin NMBP. And you'll see Locomotion in there. Open that up. And we'll begin by looking at not moving. So open up the not moving state machine. We'll see our different stances here. We have the neutral idle, which is the first idle that you see when you're sitting there not holding an item, where you're just sitting square hipped. The base, that's the basic ALS animation that it starts with. We have our left foot idle, which we'll be using when we're holding a weapon. And same thing with crouching left foot idle. We won't be using the right foot idle, but you can use some of the things that I mentioned and create the exact same code that we're going to be doing here for left foot idle. We can do the exact same thing with the right foot if you really wanted to try having a right foot forward. First, we'll start out with the left foot idle, because that will be the standard whenever you're holding a weapon. This will be the basic stance that you're in. You can see the general pose that's in there. We'll open it up and just take a quick peek. So this is the stance that you have when you're doing left foot forward. And this will be the stance that we have every time we're using a weapon. So you can close that. I just wanted you to see what the stance looked like. And this would be considered the pose when not holding a weapon, but having your left foot forward. This would be the base pose. So we want our legs to always be using this. To accomplish that, we'll need to add some code. So I want to bring over first the various animations that we'll need for holding the weapon. First, if you're just standing there with the left foot forward, you can see there's this idle rifle hip. And it is aiming here already. So if you're right clicking inside of the survival game template, it has one that raises up the iron sights. So here you can see he's got the pistol raised, or the rifle raised. And then the other one has the rifle lowered, so you're not aiming. We want to use both of these. We'll use this initial set of codes. So inside of this SGT NMBP, highlight all that code under rifle, idle rifle hip. Right click on one of them or hit Control C, and let's copy that. And then let's paste that into the blank area of the mannequin NMBP. So we have the original pose. We have here a check for is aiming. But we also have that holding item. So we'll use that holding item. But first, what we need to do is do a blend per bone on this, because we don't want to be using the lower body animations from these. We want to continue using the lower body animations from the ALS system so that it is smooth and we don't have to worry about some odd leg movement or something that's not quite right or missing from the survival game template code. So drag off of the right side of that blend poses by bool and search for blend, the layered blend per bone. If you just type blend bone or blend per bone, you'll see that as an option. And it defaults it by being that as the base pose. We don't want that, because this is not going to be the base pose. The base pose will be your legs. And then from the bone that we say upward, it's going to use these. So we want all these upper body animations to blend into the base pose. So drag from the right side of that blend poses by bool into the blend poses 0. I'm going to make a copy of this play ALS LF idle pose, because I want that to be my basic legs. We're going to Control V and paste that and put that as the base pose. So now we'll have a blend of these. We need to set the actual blend settings though. So select layered blend per bone on the upper right, hit the drop down under layer setup. And you can expand 0, and you'll see branch filter. Branch filters doesn't have anything in it. So you need to hit plus there. It'll add 2 elements or 2 things to that, to the 0. You have the bone name, which will be spine _ 01. Pretty much right around the waist area, middle of your back. And the blend depth, we'll just leave these other 2 unchecked for now. Compile and save that. So that'll cause the blend, but we don't want this to always be happening. Perhaps you wanted to use one of those keys that sets you to use left foot forward all the time, or you wanted to have a choice of when this is happening. You may not always be holding a weapon. So we need to do a check really quick so that we're not doing any weird rifle poses when you're not holding a gun. And to do that, we're going to use this holding item variable that we created earlier. I'm going to drag off and get holding item. And then we wanted to create a blend poses by bool. So drag off the right side of the blend per bone and type blend poses by bool. Now, if you're holding an item, we're going to connect these pins. If you're holding an item, it will do these things here. You could get more picky at this point if you're going to be having pistol animations and you want to have varied animations. He doesn't have that in his system currently, but if you wanted to make it more complex, you could have this, rather than be a holding item, you could have values of what you're holding. So basically pistols, melee objects. You could create some variations here based on, and then branch those out and make a more complex system that has varied animations by weapon type or by the item that you're holding, rather than just doing a check of, are you holding an item or not? So we need to still connect up this remaining one that's the base pose. We need to connect that to false, because if you're not holding an item, we want to do all the normal leg movements. We don't want anything to change. Then we should have to the right of that some pin that still is left to be able to connect. We'll connect that to result. And this should, we'll just break this down. If you're holding an item, do the things over here. If you're not, do your normal pose. Okay, you're holding an item. First of all, we're going to, whatever we do with the item, we're going to keep this base pose from the legs down of ALS. And then we're going to bring in from spine on one up these animations. Now it chooses these animations by is aiming. So is aiming means that you're pulling the rifle up to your eyes and looking down the sights. If that's true, it's doing that. If it's not, it's doing that standard rifle at the hip pose that is only from spinal one up. So that's how you break down that set of code. We're going to do something very similar in this crouch left foot. So while you're in left foot, highlight all that code. You don't have to do the last one because it won't copy and paste that anyways. Hit Control C or right click and hit copy. We're going to copy all this code over. Go back one. So if, depending on your size of your screen, you may need to go to the one more down and open up the not moving state machine, but go to that CLF underscore idle. You can see there's only one pose in there. Control V that code, because we're going to be using most of the same code. The main thing we'll be switching out is this pose here. So you can connect that up and replace it under false. Delete because this is a non-crouching one. We're in a crouching stance right now. So delete the one you just replaced, and then do Control C or right click and copy on that crouching left foot idle pose and paste it up above. And you can do a Control click and drag that out and replace that one. Now we'll also need to find these animations for the iron sights, because they should have a crouching version of those. But first, let's connect up that pin so this all goes through. Do a quick compile and save in case Unreal decides to crash on you. And then let's go over to the SGT Anim BP. Go back one, so you're back at the base locomotion up here. And let's look. So we have a crouch idle rifle iron sight. So that's one of them. I'm going to open that up. Select it, right click and copy, or Control C. Go back to the mannequin MVP. And let's paste it to the left, because that's going to be in place of this rifle iron sights here. It's just the crouch version. So Control click and drag that out. Delete the old one. File and save that. And then go back one in the SGT Anim BP. Go back to base locomotion. And we have a crouch idle rifle hip. So that would be the other one that we need. So open that up, right click, copy that node, go back to the mannequin Anim BP, Control V to paste that in there, and then Control click and replace that reference. We're going to delete the old one. So now we have at least with the idle, whenever you are in left foot idle, which you're holding an item, and you're going to be standing with the left foot forward. So this is holding an item, but idle. This is crouching with an item and idle. And we should never, you could put similar code in here neutral, but we should never be using that. We don't need to. So work your way back for the locomotion, and let's go to moving. So get back to where you're at locomotion, just above the locomotion state. Double click on moving. This one's a little more complex. There's more things happening here, but we'll break it down and get this piece together, I think, pretty easily. So go back to the SGT and BP and go back to base locomotion. We need to look at these various things. I'm going to move these around just to organize them a little bit more visually. So here's the prone sequence. We'll set that to the side since it doesn't really pertain to us at this moment. We don't need to know about prone. Here's jump from stand, and there's the jump from jog. We'll keep those together so you can, those are both jumps. Here's walking and jogging. So this is a slow walk. We can open it up and take a look really quick. Blend space will let you move around. A walk. Now let's go back one and let's take a look at the jog blend space. So this is jogging at the hips. So you're not aiming. Close that. Go back to the base locomotion. So this is your crouch blend space. So up here, we're going to have, here's the crouch iron sights, crouch idle. Here's a crouch blend space and a walk blend space. It's going to get kind of confusing, but I'm just showing you. Here's a jog blend space, and then your jumps over here. Don't get confused by all these pins. I'm just showing you visually which ones these are. You don't have to move them around right now. So to begin with, we need to, let's break down this from right to left. So you have your stances. So down here would be crouching. This would be your base pose for crouching. And then up here, everything is happening based on, let's kind of separate these a little bit more visually for you. Am I standing? Yes. Well, am I aiming? And this is the ALS aiming. If you're holding an item, generally it will be doing this. This is not the survival game template actually aiming iron sights aiming. This is pretty much the equivalent of, am I holding an item? Is my left foot forward? We could get away with, just to make this less confusing in the future, actually switching this to holding item. But let's leave that for a moment and let's just start breaking down one of these. Let's break down crouching first. Since it's a much more simple set, we're going to create a basic one here under the crouching section. And then we'll go from there and use something similar on the standing section. So first we have our crouch blend space. We have our crouch idle, which that's fine. The main thing we will need is just the section from this crouch blend space. Because he has the aiming, is aiming already happening here. So highlight all of that under crouch underscore BS, crouch blend space, under the anim BP for the survival game template. Right click and copy that, or hit Control C. And then let's go to the mannequin anim BP, the moving state that we're in, and paste that. So this is, once you're to the point of holding a weapon, you're going to be looking down the iron sights or not looking down the iron sights. So we're going to have to start by doing a check for, are we holding a weapon? So, or holding an item. So let's go ahead and drag off this blend poses by bool. And on the right side of that, type blend bool. So we have blend poses by bool. And I'm going to move this one to false. Control click and drag. So if you're not holding an item, so let's drag out that holding item. Type get, connect that up. We're not holding an item, business as usual. It's just going to do the normal blend. Well, now we need to do some things for if you are holding an item. Let's bring this down a little bit and let's move this code that I copied in up above that. And we're going to need to do a blend per bone because we don't want it replacing the animations altogether. We still want to have the locomotion of the ALS system connected in there. So from the right side of that blend poses by bool, let's drag off and then blend per bone. This is not going to be our base pose. We want this to be from the spinal one up. So move that from base pose to blend poses 0. And then let's make an extra copy of this original movement code for crouching and paste it just above all that because we want that to connect to the base pose. That's your base pose. And then connect this to true. So we're holding an item. If you're holding an item, let's blend these two together. You can get this more complex later, but we're going to try to just keep it somewhat simple at the moment. Clean this up a hair. Bring it a little bit closer. Okay. So it is using direction, play rate. We would have to see this is using speed a little bit different way. That should be fine. We'll see if these things line up. So we will need to configure this layer blend per bone because right now it's not doing anything. So if you select the layer blend per bone, you have layered setup, 0, branch filters, hit the plus there, fan that out, and then type that spine 01 that we've been doing before, spine underscore 01. Compile, and then connect this up to crouching. So that blend poses by bool, we want to connect that up to crouching. And that should pretty much take care of the crouching code. We can test this out really quick. So let's compile and save that, hit play. Let's run over and grab a weapon. Run over here where we're not in the water. All right, select that. Equip the weapon. You see it goes to the left of forward stance. We have some things that we've put in there that when you're idle, the arm actually goes and holds the weapon correctly. Now, if you start moving, it drops because we haven't configured that yet for that. But let's crouch. Okay, it has the idle crouch. You can aim. We'll start moving. The weapon code is a little bit strange there. It's not quite holding it up, so we'll have to peek at that later. But it is holding the weapon. It is aiming. It's just a little bit strange in how it's holding it. So, all right. So let's escape out of that. That's mostly working. And so now we will need to go through and start putting them together for the standing. We'll need to be back in the survival game template and BP. Go to base locomotion. We'll look at there's the crouch blend space. We've already done that one. We had the jog blend space and the walk blend space. We could, if you wanted to, break this up by stance. I'm gonna actually move these away a little bit just to give us a little bit of room here to work. So first we want to do a check for, are you holding an item? We can actually just change out this ALS aiming because we don't need to do that check. ALS aiming means a little bit of a different thing. So control click and drag the value from ALS aiming up to holding item. So now we're just doing an initial check of, are you holding an item? If you are holding an item, you'll go up to the code up top. If not, you're going to do the normal movement mode that we have here. This is all the ALS movement code. Well, if you are holding an item, now we need to do some checks. So here is your left foot forward. So this is the neutral stance movement system. Here is the ALS left foot forward movement. So we need to do a very similar thing to what we did here down below with the crouching. We're now going to do that up top here. I mean, if you wanted to, we did our holding item check. Okay. And then we did a layered blend per bone. So if you want, you can hit Control C on that. Control V it up top. And then drag that to your base pose from the blend poses by bool for holding item, and then connect that up. So we now have that in between. This is the correct base pose, but we need to add in the equivalent of the aiming, is aiming. Let's go back to the survival game template and MVP. And we'll go to the walked blend space first. Look at what it's doing. So the walking means that you're aiming down the sight. So that's the equivalent of iron sight. Go back and let's take a look at the jog. The jog is equivalent of the hip. So we're going to use both of these. So let's go ahead and start. Copy that jog code, right click and hit copy or Control C. And let's just paste it to the left here for a moment. Now go back, and that's in the mannequin and MVP. Then go back to the survival game template and MVP. Go back to base locomotion. And so we've done jog. Now we want to go to the walk. Highlight all of that. Control C, right click, copy. And then paste it below the walk. And then we can actually reuse some code that we did before. So you have this is aiming with the bool. Click on the bool and Control click is aiming. So we now have those two. Control C or right click and copy. And let's paste those up above. So we're going to bring them up like this. So we need to put them in the other order though, because if you're aiming, that means you're doing that walk, which was the iron sights up. That'll be true. If you're not, then you're doing the jog, which is the rifle at the hip run. So we will bring this down and we will connect what we just created into the blend poses 0. And it should retain that spine 01 that we had. So let's compile and save this. Let's hit play and let's see what happens. Okay, so we have it aiming down the sights. The rifle at the hips. We're running with the rifle at the hips. We actually are able to run with the rifle aimed as well. So since this is happening, let's do another quick test. Let's pick up some ammo here and see what happens with our AI. It does drop on those stops. You can see it drops the weapon down for a second. We will fix that. The upper body, you can see that it's not quite lined up as far as timing. We can also correct that. All right, so we got an AI coming here. He's not behaving quite as you would expect. So we're going to have to do some changes to make it so that he is able to to work and detect you and start shooting at you correctly. So first let's go through and let's fix this. Let's fix this upper body where when you stop, it doesn't lower the gun in that way. So escape out of that. And in the mannequin and BP, so we're at moving state right now. Go back one to locomotion. And we have our left foot stop. So if you go to left foot stop, that's going to be when you're stopping with your character, holding a left foot forward means you're basically holding a weapon now. So let's go to the survival game kit and a BP, go back to base locomotion. And we want this left foot stop to be the equivalent of an idle. So we already have our idles here. We have this idle rifle hip. So what we could do is copy some code over from what we've already made for not moving. So in the ALS or mannequin and BP, go back to locomotion, click not moving state machine, and let's do left foot idle. See all this code here? Let's copy that. Right click, copy, or Control C, and let's go back to locomotion where we get to this left foot stop. I'm going to paste, Control V, let's paste all that code in there. And then we just need to replace these play LS left foot idle poses with this left foot stop. Control click, drag that down, delete that original one. Okay. And then we need to make a copy of that and replace the idle pose up top as well. Connect up these final pins. File and save that. Go back one on locomotion. And we have this crouch left foot stop. Well, we want to do the same thing. So go to not moving. Look at crouch left foot idle. Let's highlight, copy all of that. And then click not moving, locomotion, get to the crouch left foot stop. Actually, make sure I'm on the right one. That was right foot. Crouch left foot stop. Control V, paste that in there. And we just need to replace these references of that idle pose. So click and drag that down, delete the original idle pose that we copied in. Make a copy of this left foot stop, paste it. Right click, hit copy, and paste that, Control V. And then place the top reference as well, and then connect the end pin. We'll compile and save this. And then we'll see, going to run it and see what happens. Okay, you notice it doesn't lower anymore. Now it is doing the lower on the turn in place. Seems to be, I think we've gotten this switched around, because if you look, see how when you're not clicking, it's aiming down the sights. So we will have to figure out why that is happening. And that seems to be, let's double check really quick. Sorry. I want to make note of when it's happening. You know, is it happening when we're idle? Is it happening when we're moving? When is it raising that rifle up versus having it at the correct time? Equip that. Okay, at idle it's fine. Well, now it's not doing it. Well, let's keep an eye on that. See, not doing it now. It's operating as intended. So let's keep an eye and see if that happens again, because that shouldn't have been doing that, because we should have it to where it is correctly aiming. So are you aiming iron sights? If you're not, hip. Pretty sure we did that throughout all the places. I'm going to double check my work for left foot idle, aiming iron sights, not aiming hip. Make sure those animations actually link up. Yep, that's correct. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's get back to the locomotion. So we've done moving. We've done not moving. We've got our left foot and crouching left foot stop. You've got pivot, but let's not worry about that because there's another place where actually we'll fix to where it doesn't drop the gun on pivot. Let's take a look at prone. And so really quickly, I'm gonna, since we've done a lot of work, actually let's do the jumping first. So let's go back in the mannequin and BP to locomotion main state machine. And we have our jump here. So here's jump, here's our fall loop. Now let's look at the jump that we have. You can see we have a jumping at the hip. And they're both at the hip. One is an in-place jump, and the other is a running jump. So what we can do is let's look at the mannequin and a BP. We don't have that many choices. We have a jump. And then we have, let's go and close that, a fall. So we don't really have variations in the jump. So what we can do is let's just try to find what's the best looking rifle holding for jump there. So this one's more of a left foot forward jump. That one's a little more square, but it's a lot of up and down movement. So I don't want to use the jump from stand. Let's try first with this jump from jog. Just right click, open up jump from jog, right click on the play jump from jog and copy that. And then we're going to go back to the mannequin and BP, and in that state machine, go to jump and then paste that back in there. And all we'll be doing is first, we're going to be doing the drag off of apply additive, blend bool, and let's move this new one that we brought in underneath. So we'll drag that out. This bool is going to be connected to the very end one. And what we're going to be checking is, are you holding an item? So drag holding item out there, do a get, connect it up. Actually, we'll want this to go off of, well, we'll be doing both. So what we could do is just make a copy. So where it says add additive, all that existing code, we're going to Control C and we're going to make an exact copy of that. Control V that and drag that into false. If you're not holding an item, do your normal jump. If you are holding an item though, and here's where we will need to drag off of this top apply additive. We're going to need to do a blend per bone. And that goes into that base pose correctly. And then we need to drag the right side out to the true. And then we're blending in this play jump from jog. Put that in there. And then we'll need to select layered blend per bone. Layered setup, make that sure that's expanded. 0 is expanded. You have your branch filter, set the plus there. Expand the 0. And type spine underscore 01. Compile and save that. And let's do actually, before we do a play here, let's make an exact copy of this. I'm going to clean this up and bring it a little closer together. All right, so I'm going to make a copy of this. Control C it, go back on jump and go to the fall loop. And then let's paste this up above. And then look at what we need to replace. So we need to drag the existing code And we're going to delete the additive. So the apply additive and everything to the left of that, the play ALS jump, we're going to delete that. And we're going to connect up that existing code into false. We need to make a copy of that existing code. So highlight it all and hit copy. And then we need to paste a copy up above. And then all of this code, this is the same existing code that we deleted below a minute ago, the base pose. Delete that. Connect up the copy code we just copied to base pose and bring it down. So now we have kind of a similar thing, but it's using this fall loop instead. Drag the output pose and connect it up at the end. So now let's pick up a gun and let's try running and jumping and see what happens. First of all, we have our jump here, which is just the standard jump. Pick up a weapon. Kind of flails when you jump. Considering, since you can see that he's doing kind of a crazy jump movement, I think we'd be better off not using the jump animation, but just using the upper body idle animation. I bet you that would look even better than using this. So let's kind of move this out a little bit. Here is the play jump from jog that we are going to be replacing. That's the only animation that I think is being strange. So the fall loop, I'm expanding that out a little bit. This is the play jump from jog. Now let's go back to the main state machine. Go to Locomotion now. Go to Locomotion in there. And let's do not moving. We'll open up not moving state machine. And then let's do left foot idle. And I want to copy this. Now I don't know that it lets you jump while aiming down the sights, but let's see what happens when we do this. So we want to do is aiming and that whole bool and then the things to the left of it. We're going to copy that. And we're going to go back to Locomotion up here. All the way back to the state machine, back to that fall loop. And I'm going to paste, Control V. This is aiming code. I'm going to replace that blend pose as 0. I just want to see what that looks like. So I'm going to copy that again and go back to this jump. And we will do something similar there. I'm going to expand this out just so you can see how everything is broken up. We're just dealing with this one here, that jump from jog. I'm going to paste that. We'll control drag that down to replace it. See if that looks like a better looking jump animation. So there's just a lot of wobbling happening with the actual jump animation. It wasn't smooth. Look at that. So now you can actually jump while aiming down sights. You can run there. So we will need to slow down. So there's that jogging, his upper body jogging animation is much faster. I'm running out of stamina because I'm testing running so much. Is faster than what the ALS animation is. So we will come back and take a look at that. All right, so I think we've got most of the upper body. So I'm going to take a quick backup here, and then we will come back and fix some little issues with the AI and Just do some polish at that point and get it and put in prone, make sure prone works. And then I think we'll be getting pretty close to having this all working. So do a quick backup and then we'll continue on. Let's do a quick recap on what we need to fix next. So when the player is holding a weapon, there's a couple of movements that are not intended. And we have some quick fixes for these. So when you're holding a weapon, you'll first notice that when you turn in place, it lowers the weapon. That is not what you want. So we'll have to fix to where it always holds the weapon up. Also, when you crouch, it lowers the weapon as well. But we will need to fix those two issues. Fix the first one. So let's first fix the crouching, because that's a very quick fix. So if you do a search for CLF2, and you can do this in the NMBP, the mannequin NMBP, you will see here anim notifies CLF to LF. That means crouching left foot to left foot. So that's that change from crouching to standing when holding a weapon. You want to right click and break the link to that transition. The same thing for anim notify LF to CLF to the left of it. You want to break that transition. Compile and save that. Play that really quick, and that should have removed the issue with the gun lowering on the crouch. Now we will still have the error when you're turning in place. We'll have to do something a little bit different to fix that. So let's go ahead and crouch, and you can see it no longer drops the weapon down when you crouch. To go back, so in the mannequin NMBP and the anim graph, we're gonna have to make some adjustments in this section here to be able to not drop that weapon on a turn. So to do this, I'm going to make a little space here. So from full body in that ragdoll area, I'm going to drag that to the right. And there's some code that we have to find that is actually interfering with this. So to get to it, you need to go to the main state machine in mannequin NMBP, go to Locomotion, and then under Locomotion state, do you see all this code in here? Here's something referring to turn in place. Well, I would love to put some things in this page to fix it, but I can't do a blend per bone correctly and have it actually work. So let's try, we can try it. Let's see what happens. So let's say this is my base blend here. Well, I don't want to duplicate this whole set of Locomotion to be able to do a blend. So if I try to create a cache, I don't have the ability to create a cache in this section. So I can't really do a good blend or a bool or anything in this area because I can't create caches to be able to correctly fill them in. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. So we get rid of that blend per bone. And what I'm going to do is right click and copy all of this, or you can cut, but I'm going to copy. I'm going to go back. Actually, I'm going to delete it now. I'm going to drag this over and just connect those two up directly. And then I'm going to click anim graph up here and go back that space that I had created and paste. So now we have that code and it allows me to create caches in the main anim graph. So it'll go from additive to full body in the end. And then we need to drag this over to the right, and we're going to create a blend and a check for is the player holding an item. So first we're going to see, because we don't want, if they're not holding an item, we don't need to do all this aiming stuff. We want to actually do a check there. So drag off of layer blend per bone and do blend bool. So we're doing a blend poses by bool. I'm going to move this a little bit farther away. And we're going to be checking. So you can scroll down and holding item. You can drag it directly in there, connect it up. So if you're holding an item, true, we're going to do some of these things with aiming and not aiming. If you're not, we're going to use this cache-based pose, and we're going to put that into false. Okay, that's fine. And now we're going to drag off of this one and do a blend per bone. So to the right of that, blend by bool, and we'll do blend per bone. And our base pose is going to be a little bit different here because we're going to want to create a cache. So to do this, we're going to first drag off of this bool and type cache. So there's a new save cache pose. We want to create that, and let's just call it turn. So we call it turn cache. And then we'll want to drag from the right, or so from the left side, from the base pose of the layered blend per bone on the right side. And we want to do a search for, call it turn cache. And there we go. We have our turn cache pose. So that's going to be coming in. And what we want to put in between this is this turn in place. So we have this slot turn in place. Want to go from turn cache to that, and from that to base pose. So we now have that going into our base pose, and then make a copy of turn cache. Put that into blend pose as 0. Now this blend per bone is not configured yet. So on that layered setup, expand 0, branch filters, hit plus, expand that 0, type spine _ 01. And drag from that blend per bone into the additive land. And then we can highlight all that and we'll bring it closer together. There we go. So now we have some things that are actually taking the turn in place. And it's going to be keeping a copy so that the legs and everything continue to turn, but it's going to be maintaining and adding in that upper body of holding the weapon when we do that. So that should solve that problem of the gun lowering. And we can test that out really quick and just make sure it does, but it should no longer lower when we're turning in place. Let's run over and pick up that weapon. And we'll do some quick turns in place. We now have the weapon equipped. You see we're turning in place. Let's do somewhat of a weird. We'll have to look at that, but see how it does kind of a weird glitch when you turn. So let me just do a little bit of testing here. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's better. Still just doing it when you're aiming down the sights. So we'll have to do a little bit of checking to see what is going on with that. But let's go ahead and move on for now and fix some of the other issues, and then we'll come back to polishing that up. All right, so go ahead and save that. And then we'll need to look at prone. So when you're in the mannequin anim BP, on the lower left side, go to make sure you're in the anim graph. Click main state machine, locomotion. Actually, one thing I did miss is we have our land animation. When you land, that's after you fall from a jump. I'm going to close that really quick. And let's copy from this fall loop. There's some extra things in there. Let's do it from the jump. Okay. So highlight everything from the jump state. So in the main state machine, you go to jump, copy all that, go to land. Let's paste that in here. And then we've separated this out to make it a little bit easier. But what we will want to do is just connect this land to false. Delete that old code there. Create a copy of that ALS normal land. And then we will want to paste it up top. We can delete all this. And that's your base. We've got all this code here. You want to connect up the end. And that should make it so that when you land, you're still holding your weapon. Now we go to the main state machine. Go to Locomotion. And we have to look at where we want to actually bring this code in, because with our with the prone, we want to be able to do it from multiple states. We want to be able to do it from not moving and from moving. So I think it'd be a good place to add this is right here, where even if we're moving or not moving, we can still go into prone. And we want to go to the survival game template and MVP. Remember that code that we have for the 3 different pieces for prone? We want to highlight all of that. There's no point really in highlighting these 2 lines here because they won't copy over, but we'll just get the 3 nodes, right click and hit copy or hit Control C and paste them down below here. We do need to keep note of what gets us here. So one thing that we could do just to make this a little bit easier is we can make a conduit. So this is, we'll just call it prone stance. So to go into prone stance, there's one rule. You need to be is prone. So you see in the lower left here is prone. Type get on that. If you're prone, you then can enter that transition. So that gets you into the prone stance. And then once we're in the prone stance, we want to look, okay, we want to go from stand to prone. So that's going to be the animation that drops you down. So we want to drag from the prone stance to stand to prone. And we don't want to have we don't want someone to get stuck in this. So pretty much if you come into this prone stance, you automatically want to come here. And then just open that transition and just hit can enter transition. So the second you get into prone stance, you go from stand to prone. We're not going to mess with this prone to idle. And then you have here, if you're not going to be prone anymore, you enter into this. So you sit here prone until you undo prone, takes you to this one. And then we don't want any restriction coming here. We want to have it to where you automatically go to standing. So we'll check that box for can enter transition. So that takes you to this prone stance. Now we want a way to get out of the prone stance. So when you're no longer, so you've gotten here, you're no longer prone. So you drag back to the not moving, put a transition there. And what we want it to be is, are you not prone anymore? So drag off of there, type not, and select not Boolean. I want to connect that. So it goes from is prone, no, I'm not prone. Okay, you can enter that transition. So now we're able to freely move back between not moving and in the prone stance. But we also want to do something very similar for moving. So one thing we could do is if you're not moving, you want to go in the prone stance. We don't want any restrictions there, but we do want to decide whether or not to go between moving and not moving. So we'll add something here to the left of not under this prone, the transition from prone stance to not moving. So in there, drag from the right of not and type and. Then we'll do an and Boolean. You can connect the right side over to the transition. And we'll check, are you moving? So type moving in the lower left. Do a search. And there is one for is moving. So get is moving. Drag off of that. We'll type not. So you're not moving. If that is true and you're not prone anymore, you will go to the not moving. Now let's drag from moving down to prone stance. Look at that transition. All we care about, we don't need to set any big rules other than, are they prone? If they're prone, so drag over is prone, do a get, drag it into that. And if you are prone, you can go into the prone stance. We now need to decide how they get out of the prone stance when they're moving. So drag up from prone stance to moving. Let's look at that transition. We want to check that they are not prone. So off of his prone, do a not. But we also want to do a check that they're moving. So is prone, and this may be a little bit redundant, but we'll do them for both places just in case. So we'll do a and here. Connect the right pin up. We'll do a get moving. If you right click, you can do get is moving. Connect that. So they are not prone any longer, but they are moving. That means that they can enter that transition. Telling me I missed one. So let's take a look. So here in the prone stance, once it gets here at this moment, it won't go anywhere because it's can enter transition. No, we want it to be automatic. So the second that you come in here, it passes you off. Either you're no longer prone, and but you wouldn't have gotten here in the first place from this direction if you weren't going prone. If you are, it automatically hands you off. What we could do here is actually because we're going to have this be an automatic transition here under the prone stance. You can check that box, file that, and you'll see that the warning goes away. Let's do a quick check because let's just make sure you're prone. I don't want this to kind of turn into a weird loop. So this transition between prone stance and stand to prone, let's just do a check for is prone. So do a get on is prone. If you're prone, you can go that way. If you're not, you're going to go this way. That might not be needed, but let's do it just to make sure we don't get stuck in any kind of transitions. So let's do single player, new game. I think the default is X. Okay. Double checking all this. All right. There is one thing that you notice that his animation gets up really fast. So I am wondering if we need to do a check before we go into this prone to stand to make sure that this prone to stand animation is completed. So what we can do is let's actually look. I think they've already done this for leaving the previous one. So we have here time remaining on prone to stand. So we're going to need to do something similar. So go back to that mannequin and a BP. And then the transition from prone to stand to prone stance, we want to go in there. Right now it's just automatic. But what we want to do is time remaining. You can search for that. Prone to stand. And when there's 0.1 seconds left on it is what it's doing. That's the exact same one. It will then allow a transition into there. So it will kind of force that to finish. So let's hit compile and save there. Let's see what happens. Okay, so he lays down. Now he stands up. Now it's doing something strange to where it gets stuck. Let's try raising that a hair and see what happens. Still didn't do it. So there's kind of two tricks to do this. we can either go through and tweak this, or one thing you could do is have it jump when there's, we want on the top one. So let's say that we're a quarter of the way through animation. I just want to see what happens here. So if we're a quarter of the way through animation or less, you're allowed to go into that final state. Let's just see how that looks. Okay, no, that worked. Let's do it that way. And what we can tweak it really quick just to see. Doesn't look too bad. Yeah, actually I like that. So now it's allowing us to go in and out of prone. And you're able to move afterwards. So what I did is a time remaining ratio. So I'm saying if it's a quarter of the way through the animation, let it go through and transition to one of these. So we now have our prone stand, stand to prone, idles in prone, goes to stand up. It allows us to get back into here, which hands us back to not moving or moving. And that seems to be correct. So now, there's one thing that we're missing here. We're kind of cheating a little bit, and I don't think most of you have probably noticed yet. But if we go in, I have a feeling that there is no IK currently. The inverse kinematics are not actually working. And the way that you test this, go stand on a ledge. See how my left foot is hovering? That means the IK is not activated. And I know exactly why. So let's go to the main menu and let's browse. Let's find under Advanced Locomotion V3 character, and actually we need to find the actual character itself, the skeleton. But that's under the skeletal mesh. That's under SGT, and then under, let's see, to find the actual meshes. So meshes and then character. So we have here the body. And if you open that up, you'll notice here under post-processing, this is what determines IK, it's selected to none. Now, if we turn around and put that in, we'll have an issue to where the AI, which is not using, I have the AI using its own blend space, and it creates some issues. So what I want to do is actually, I want to duplicate these. So select, you can either do it one at a time or select both of those meshes and duplicate. And what I want to do is separate those. So I'm going to do a dash AI at the end of the new one's names, because I don't want the AI to be trying to be doing IK as they're running around. I just want them to run around and do their own animations. So we have our AI versions. Now, they won't be using that yet because the blueprint for the AI is still using the other NMBP. So go to SGT, Blueprints, AI, open that up, the example 01, and then go to Viewport. And you see here, there is the skeleton, or sorry, the mesh. And he is currently using the AI NMBP, but he's also using that mannequin body. He's not using that new AI one we created. So in the mesh, you need to hit the drop down and select the AI. So then when we go and make changes to the mesh for the regular character, it won't affect the AI players. We need to do the exact same thing. Go to the head, the drop down, and choose head-AI. When compile and save that. And then we should be able to go into, so I'm going to close down some of these things so that we get there in case you have closed down a few windows. Go and close down everything except for the main menu. I'm going to do a quick just save all on this. It's thinking really hard, so we'll give this a second. There we go. Do a quick save all just in case Unreal crashes. They did just put a recent update, which seems to have cut down on crashing, but let's close all these. Every time we close an NMBP, it seems to think for a minute. Close the survival controller and the ALS-based character. So now we're at the main window, and we want to go to the SGT, or wherever you have your survival game kit folder. We want to go to meshes. We want to choose the character mesh. Now double click and open that mannequin body, not the AI one. Scroll down on the left and go to post-process AnimBP or blueprint, and hit the drop down and choose the mannequin IK AnimBP. Okay, hit save on that, close that one, and then also open up the head. Roll down, do the exact same thing. In the post-process, choose that mannequin IK AnimBP, hit save, and then let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens. All right, so now you can see he is using IK. He's actually has his foot properly placed. But let's try something really quick. See what happens. Oh, well, look at what happens when you're prone. Well, also we'll need to disconnect the turn in place when prone. We'll have to make it so that you can't do that. But look at that. Your feet go kind of crazy. So we need to figure out a fix for that. So to do that, we'll need to go into the actual Anim BP, the IK Anim BP. So advanced locomotion. Let's go to mannequin. And then, or characters in the mannequin. And you see the mannequin IK Anim BP? Let's open that up. You can scroll out and you can see this is the code having to deal with IK. And we will need to go into the event graph. So here we have some checks. When you're falling, it doesn't want to try to put your feet on the ground, so it disables the foot IK. We need to keep note of that. When you're ragdoll, it does some special behaviors, but when you're grounded, the prone would be considered grounded. So what we want to do is actually make some changes so that this goes through and checks to see if you're prone first. So let's drag this foot IK to the right. Let's drag off of grounded. Actually, first we will need to get a reference to the character. So under references in lower left, the ALS-based character, do a get on that. Put that right above that movement mode. Drag off of it and type get prone. We want to see if they're prone. And then go ahead and drag and connect it up not to none. We want to actually replace. So control click the grounded to the right side of get prone and then connect that up. And then off of the right side of get prone, we want to do a branch. Connect the prone state to that branch. And then off of, we want to make sure, say that if you're not prone, it uses the normal foot IK. So we want to move that true down to false. So from false, it goes to foot IK. And we want to make a copy of this enable foot IK that falling uses and paste it. So Control C and Control V, or right click and copy and then Control V. And drag from true up there. You want to make sure that's unchecked because that's disabling IK whenever you are prone. Let's see if that works correctly. Look at there. So still, we'll turn in place, which we just need to prevent that. But you can see that it's actually, it's actually allowing you to correctly prone. It's turning off IK. You get up. And there you go. It does do a weird thing during the transition phase. We won't worry about that for now. You could go through and put some things. You could put a delay on this. That's the length of the animation. If you wanted to do that as far as re-enabling, but let's leave that for now. I'm not super concerned. You could also shorten that transition time, pretty much make it so that if you increase the ratio number on that transition, you can make it 0.75, so it would actually much more quickly bring you up. But we'll leave that for now. I'm not too concerned about it. It's not breaking anything. So let's go ahead and take a look at what else might not be working. So I'm going to grab a weapon, and I just want to check something with the AI that we have done. All right, so you notice the AI never shoots at me. And let's go ahead and look at the reason for that. So currently, the AI, let's go ahead and kill him really quick. So the AI currently, when they come up to me, they're not able to do an actual attack. Also, I wanted to point this out. If you look, his head isn't attached to his body properly. So we want to fix that as well. So to do that, first let's fix the head not being attached to the body. So we want to go back to the main menu to where you're browsing. Go to SGT, Blueprints, and AI. I want to go to this NPC example 01. And I want to go to the construction script. Here, I need to, first of all, let's drag a reference to head. And let's drag a reference to the mesh. What I want to do is drag off of construction script. I want to set master pose component. And what I want to do is have it be based on the head. Now, I guess I have a duplicate here. That's fine. We'll just delete this one. So the target is head. And then the new master bone component is mesh. And it's going to kind of lock those together so that they're in the same pose. So that way when you kill an AI, the head actually stays attached to the body of the AI, even in the ragdoll. So this will fix that. So that's just a quick fix for that. And then we need to go through and make it so that the AI has the ability to target and shoot at our character. Now, I went through and found the reason why this isn't working. And so we'll just go through and fix it. And then I'll explain as we're fixing it what's going on. So we need to get into our character. So go to Advanced Locomotion V3 Blueprints and open up the ALS-based character. We also want to scroll down and go to SGT Blueprints and then Game. And you see your Survival Character 1. That's the backup we created. Let's open that. Now select Mesh. And then this is in the Survival Character 1 under Mesh. In the search details, I want to type collision. You'll notice these are custom collision settings. I now want to go to the mesh under the ALS-based character, and let's type collision. Well, these are just standard character mesh ones. They're not the same. So when the AI is doing a check to try to see if it can shoot at you, it's not correctly doing it because visibility traces are ignored on our ALS-based character. So it's actually not allowing it to work properly. So what we want to do is we want to go through and mimic these settings. We want to control these settings, put these settings over to be exactly the same in the ALS-based character. So what we'll do is first select custom. So in ALS-based character, collision preset, set custom. And then we'll look at this collision enabled. We want it to be collision enabled, query and physics. So in the base character, collision enabled, query and physics. The type is physics body. So we want to set that to be the same. And then we want to make sure that all of these except for pawn are checked. on the right side. So if you just change the visibility over, that was the only one that wasn't the same. Let's see. And then also vehicle. Actually, so vehicle we want to do as well. There we go. So now they're the same between those two. So that should correct that issue. So let's do just a quick check. These other ones look the same. Let's check the head. Head looks the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out. I'm going to do a save all. Right click content, fix up redirectors. Single player, new game. Let's go see if the AI tries to kill me. And they shouldn't run all the way up to me now. Now they should actually detect me properly. And at a certain distance, stop and shoot at me, not just run up and be right next to me. So there you go. So now you can see, stopped at a certain distance, and he has killed me. Let's also check that the head is properly attached. We'll grab that gun, grab some ammo. We'll try killing the AI player. Well, look, his upper body animations are kind of crazy. We may have to tweak that some. Look at there. So you can see his head is a state attached to his body. So correctly ragdolling now. All right, so I'm going to do a quick save here just to be safe. And then we'll continue on. Now I think it would be a good idea to go through and fix some of that running animation. We had noticed that the movement seems kind of janky as you're running around. So we'll want to go into the mannequin NMBPs. Remember that is under advanced locomotion V3 mannequin. You have your mannequin NMBP. I'm going to save this and let's go ahead and go to moving. That seems to be the area that is having the issue at the moment. And what we'll do is when we're holding an item, that's true, let's follow this up. And you are blending in, this is aiming versus not aiming. Let's take a look at that jog and just kind of see what the animation looks like. Really that sprint that seems to be pretty crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that sprint and I'm going to lower the scale down to about half. So that very top pin right there, which is, I'm going to let's break down what this blend space is actually doing. So when you're going 0 speed, it's just the most basic speed you can have. I mean, they don't have an idle animation, but it's equivalent of idle because you have a separate idle animation when you're not moving. So it's the second that you're moving, it starts doing this movement. I'm going to disable the IK so you can really see it. And so directly down the center here, that means that you're going forward. If you go more to the right here, it starts moving the player to the right. So this is directly right, this 3/4 mark. And then as you go more to the right, it starts actually working towards backwards, because you're working off of 180 degrees. So as you get closer to 180, when you're doing a 180, you're actually running directly backwards. It works the exact same way going to the left. You start turning to the left, now you're going completely left. And then as you continue to change your movement direction, you're now doing completely backwards. They kind of meet in the middle. This is exactly the same on the left side as it is on the right side. Now, as you go up on the blend space, that is your player speed. So when you get to this first one, there's not really a difference. It doesn't change the speed because these animations are identical. If you had one where maybe you were having your idle animations built into the blend space, you would have these be idle and it would transition between an idle and a run. But what it's mainly doing is going from this jog transition to a sprint transition. And that sprint was just a little bit crazy. We might want to, let's try 0.75, 0.7. I'm going to try that. 0.7, I just want to see if that looks more natural. I hit save on there. And then let's go to the main menu. Let's do a play. We'll pick up a weapon and we'll see what it looks like. Yeah, that looks much better. Seems to not be quite as out of sync. You'll still be going a little bit faster. So let's try that one more time. Do a 0.6. See if it matches up closely enough to the actual running ALS running animation to where it's not really noticeable. Of course, you can go in and replace animations and use kits and get things more closely done. Yeah, I think that works. So his shoulders seem to transition as he takes a step, more closely lines up to what the legs are doing. I think that is acceptable. So another thing that we want to look at is, I'm not going to totally disable turning in place with prone, because I want you to still be able to, if you needed to quickly turn. I'm not going to go through and rework all the code to make it to where you just spin. But what I will do is I'll make it so where you're not moving quite so fast, so that this is more of a slow movement to where it just doesn't feel that way. So what we need to do is, let's go into the survival controller. So if you need to get there, go to main menu, go down to SGT, go to blueprints, then go to game. Then you have your survival controller. Go ahead and open that up. And then we'll want to be want to be in input mappings. So you go to graphs, input mappings. It'll take you to this page. I'm going to zoom out so you can see generally where we're at. I'm on the upper left side. And then input axis, I want to be looking at the turn, just like right below look up. I'm going to tweak this so that it acts a little bit differently when you're in the prone state. So let's go ahead and we'll need to create some more room. So let's move this input axis turn. Let's move it to the left a bit. And then what I'll want to do is I want to drag off of this input axis, and let's do a clamp. And we want it to be clamp float. We want to limit this to, let's say, a negative 0.5, which is going to be making it so that you can't turn nearly as quickly. So it's gonna limit that quite a bit. Now what we'll want to do is to do a branch. That branch can be more to the right, but we need to come up with the condition that we're actually going to be using to determine if we go true or false on this branch. So on the left here under references, you've got your manager movement. I want you to drag that out and put a get there. And we want to do drag off of that and do a get prone. We want to know, is the player prone? All right, if the player is prone, then we're going to do something different based on the prone state. So first, we need to create a variable, because we're wanting to affect this, but I don't want to affect it when you're not prone. So what we'll do is drag off of this axis value, and we're going to do promote to variable. And I'm just going to call this prone clamp. And I'm actually going to be setting the value to the right of that branch. So what you could do is if you want to double click right here on that line and then drag the prone clamp up to clean it up a hair. And then this clamp up here it can come off of this directly, but you'll want to have it above the branch because it's going to be going into this set right here. So control click that true and drag it to the right of that prone clamp and then connect that up. And then we'll want to make another copy. So control C and then control V, make a duplicate copy of the prone clamp. And we'll have that just drag directly into this prone clamp. Well, we don't want it continuing on. So you need to delete this one that's connecting between that and the final value or the final output. So go ahead and connect up false to that prone clamp. So it's going to be having the standard prone clamp whenever you're not or the standard axis value whenever you're not prone. And then if you are prone, it's going to be limiting the amount that you can turn. So we want to connect up prone clamp to the branch, have that continue on. But we need to feed the proper value into this final input. So go ahead and drag prone clamp out there, do a get, and connect it up to that last one. So whatever this value is, it's going to feed it into there. And then you can bring this closer together, clean it up, and make your values look however you wish. Or make the layout a little bit cleaner, however you prefer to have it. So, all right, I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and test it out and see what it actually does. Well, one thing, I'm going to check all functionality on this turn. So let's go ahead and open up this crate. We'll grab some of the various items. We'll equip them, make sure everything equips properly. All right, they're all moving with the character. Get this the journal so that this gives you additional crafting recipes. Okay. Pick up a few items here. Oh, here's a gun right here. We'll just check each thing and make sure with this kind of final pass, there's nothing else we need to actually fix. All right, so we're going to go and pick up. So first of all, let's check our prone. Nope. Got myself. Nice. So you can see here it's moving more slowly. Oh, this guy's shooting me. Well, to check the gun seems to be aiming, so that is something we do need to fix. Let's uncrouch. I'm about to bleed out. I don't have any bandages. Well, let's try that again. So we do need to check the gun direction when crouching. Pick up this gun. Grab these crafting recipes. And realize that AI had seen me and was coming over. I was hoping to interact with that crafting bench beforehand. see here, here's a crafting bench. Limited number of recipes. I'm going to read this book. The crafting, you can now see that there are multiple items, but let's get some resources. I'm going to pick up this sledgehammer. Oh, first we need to kill this. Wow, he killed me. Nice. No, that's not good. But I think I'll have to kill him first. Actually, I could have respawned. We should probably test that. Make sure the respawn works. We need these for some of the crafting recipes. Very dark in here, but the gun should be right about there. Yep. Okay. Equip this armor just so I don't die as quickly. Okay, let's bandage. Just I don't want to die. I want to actually get through the demo here. Okay. So now I'm going to pick up and equip the sledgehammer. And then got too much weight on me. So go ahead and make this crafting bench really quick. So it used some of my armor to do that. I'm going to drag that onto the bar down here. And there we go. So item placement works. You can see I was able to harvest. Got some wood planks. So that crafting seems to work. Armor works. AI is working. And I think we're mostly there. So remember that we were having some strange issues with how the character was aiming down the sights and interacting with the upper body weapon when crouching. And I think that this is related to some of the blend per bone that we're doing. So let's go ahead and tweak a little bit. So first, let's go to moving. And let's look at, so I'm in the mannequin NMBP. And if you want to get to where I'm at, just go ahead and on graphs, go to anim graph, go to the main state machine, go to locomotion, open up that locomotion, and then let's go ahead and start with not moving state machine. And then let's look at left foot idle. Now this layered blend per bone that's in the middle there, I currently have it on a 0 blend depth. So it's not kind of smoothing out. It's just a very cut off, exactly here's how it is. Let's do a little bit of a blend depth where it kind of evens out and does a little bit better interaction. So I like to do a blend depth of 3. I generally always do a blend in blend space rotation, and I check this in the mesh space. I've always found that to be better. So what I want to do is let's change these and let's look and see how it is. So now I'm also going to go back one and go to the crouching left foot idle. Let's look at the blend, make it a 3 and check that box. Okay, so that is for not moving. Let's go back to locomotion. Let's go to moving. So up at the top here, we have our layered blend per bone. Let's just try it and see what happens with even with the upper body on standing. we'll just change it to 3. We'll make them all consistent. So from the holding item, that blend per bone, this one will leave the same. This one was pre-configured by ALS. But from the holding item on the crouching, we'll do the same thing. Select that, do a 3, check that box. And now let's do a play and just see if it looks a little bit smoother. Okay. But you do see that it is now actually aiming down. So when we were crouching before, it was aiming to the left. Now you can see it's actually aiming forward on both standing and crouching. So I think this is a good point. I think we've got most of the things working. Well, I may do an update video after this. If I find some little tweaks, maybe someone will find small issues here and there, and we can put out another update video to get it polished up a little bit more. But I think we've got most of the functionality. We actually have improved some of the functionality as well. So if you found this video interesting, if you want to see more of these videos, first of all, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you want to be a part of the process, don't be afraid to join our Discord server. We have on there people asking questions and helping each other out throughout the week. And also my Patreon, if you'd like to help support. And one thing I'm looking to do with the Patreon is be able to purchase more assets. I get a lot of requests to do certain videos on certain assets in the marketplace, but some of those I don't own. And it gets kind of expensive buying all of those. So what we'll be doing is having people that contribute to the Patreon. I'll be putting those funds towards purchasing additional assets so that I can do future videos. Some of my next couple of videos will be a little bit more short and sweet ones, just because I've done 3 pretty decent sized packages of integrating those with ALS. I'll be doing some additional ones like weapon impacts and footprints, sounds, and actually marks that are left on the ground. Some fun ones like that are more generic to whatever project you might be doing. And I'll be showing some really cool assets on the marketplace that really help you get some good effects with that. So thank you very much for watching this, and I will see you guys later.